Chapter 24. As the direct descendant of an invincible realm expert, everything Lu Xiaowei learned came from his father, Lu Tianqing. For anyone who was interested in martial arts, this was an unimaginable wealth. As the most populous country in the world, Zhongzhou State had a population of 1.5 billion. But how many invincible realm experts were there among these 1.5 billion people? 4. There were only 4 invincible realm experts in the entire Zhongzhou State. Including the dead Lu Tianqing, there were no more than 5. But how many warriors were there in Zhongzhou State? There were thousands, millions, or even hundreds of millions of them. Few of them were lucky enough to be taught by an invincible realm expert. In this respect, Lu Xiaowei was absolutely lucky. His talent was not outstanding, even a little bad. But because he was Lu Tianqing's son, he became an expert at the peak of the fire-flaming realm. He could even have a glimpse of the thunder-shocking realm in his lifetime. All this was because of the solid foundation his father laid for him. And because of his good father, Lu Xiaowei could be regarded as an expert even among the experts at the peak of the fire-flaming realm. But it did not mean that Lu Xiaowei did not know the shortcomings of his family's martial arts. It took his father, Lu Tianqing, less than 10 years to enter the invincible realm from the fire-flaming realm. The unique skill of the Lu family was fierce in offense and steady in defense. It could be said that it was good at both offense and defense. But the unique skill of the Lu family had a shortcoming that everyone knew and couldn't ignore. That was, it was not fast enough. The Lu family's martial arts could attack and defend, but once it encountered an extremely agile opponent, it would become extremely passive. This shortcoming existed when Lu Tianqing was alive. At that time, people knew that the Lu family needed an extremely agile unique skill to make up for their shortcomings. But now, after so many years, the Lu family had never found a suitable body movement, so the shortcoming still existed. But everyone knew the shortcoming of the Lu family's martial arts, but the Lu family had always been intact for many years, which was enough to prove that even if the shortcoming existed, it would not be too serious. In the whole dark world, except for a few recognized top body movements, other body movements were extremely limited in restraining the Lu family's martial arts. At the beginning, Lu Xiaowei did not take Li Tianlan seriously. At the end of the maneuver, there were 2 big screens, on which most of the scenes inside and outside the maze could be seen. At this time, the leaders and teachers of the Sky Academy gathered there, watching the performances of the freshmen and the seniors. In the beginning, Lu Xiaowei was one of them. When Li Tianlan broke the wall 5 times, his figure had already appeared on the big screen, which made all the teachers of the Sky Academy remember this freshman. When he broke the wall 20 times, someone had already confirmed that he had the wind and thunder veins. But Lu Xiaowei still didn't take it seriously. Judging from the way Li Tianlan broke the wall, he was sure that he was a warrior who took the domineering way. The wind vein was indeed born with amazing speed, but what was the use of such speed without excellent body movements? From Li Tianlan breaking the wall to the subsequent battle, Lu Xiaowei saw it all, which made him even more certain that Li Tianlan was indeed a warrior who took the domineering path. There was no other possibility. Li Tianlan in the maze was exactly as he had predicted. But why did he seem to be a different person as soon as he entered the forest? Looking at the countless ice steps in front of him, Lu Xiaowei felt so suffocated that he almost vomited blood. The leaves in the sky whistled and formed a flock, completely blocking the view from above. Li Tianlan's body kept changing from one step to another as if he was teleporting, looking for the most comfortable angle of attack. Lu Xiaowei could not even see any sign of him exerting any strength. Li Tianlan could cross a distance of more than 10 meters with just a casual step and appear on another step. All the steps seemed to have become a part of his body, and he could go wherever he wanted. Lu Xiaowei felt a little cold inside. He knew that in order to see the situation of each student, nearly 10,000 cameras were installed in the maze, and a low-altitude satellite was placed over the forest. But now, with the leaves above, no one would see what he would experience next. Did he want to hide this body movement? What the hell is this body movement? Lu Xiaowei had dominated the special warfare system of Zhongzhou State for decades, but he had never seen this kind of body movement. turning the void into ice, borrowing the strength of the ice stair, and achieving the effect of teleportation within a radius of dozens of meters should be the top unique skill in the entire dark world, but he had never heard of it before. Lu Xiuwei's heart kept sinking, but his voice was still calm. Although he was uneasy, he was still an expert at the peak of the fire-flaming realm. Facing an ice-condensing realm expert, he did not think he would lose. What body movement is this? I'll tell you before you die. Li Tianlan's figure kept changing on the countless ice steps, so his voice came from all directions, fragmented, with colder indifference than ice. You? Lu Xiuwei stood where he was with a sneer. Come on, I'll see how you kill me. Okay. Li Tianlan responded, and the silver spearhead arrived at the same time as his voice. The fierce qi roared recklessly. Lu Xiuwei's hands were on fire. He raised his hands to grab it, but the violently shaking spearhead stopped. Before the qi in front of him dissipated, Li Tianlan had appeared behind him and stabbed him with the spear again. Insignificant skill. Lu Xiuwei's body burst into flames. He did not hold back and attacked with all his strength. As long as he melted all the steps around him, how could Li Tianlan get close to him? Give me your body movement and weapon, and I'll let you go this time. The flames around Lu Xiuwei rippled, and his voice was cold and dignified. Although he said that this movement technique was just a small trick, the more he experienced the profoundness of this movement technique, the more his eyes burned. This was the movement technique that the Lu family had been dreaming of. You want it? Li Tianlan sneered. Come and get it yourself. Whoosh. Behind him, the silver spear whistled again and struck Lu Xiuwei's back with violent killing intent. Li Tianlan's attack suddenly became crazy. The spear, which weighed more than 50 kilograms, was waved with all his strength. Wherever the spear passed, there were harsh whistles and fierce qi. The ice steps around Lu Xiuwei collapsed and reassembled, and Li Tianlan's body appeared in all directions. Stabbing, sweeping, chopping, and flicking. Lu Xiuwei was surrounded by Li Tianlan, silver spears, and fierce energy qi. He attacked at close range. The spear was like a dragon. At this moment, Li Tianlan was unprecedentedly focused and crazy. His surging killing intent and fighting intent were released with every swing of the spear. It destroyed everything and tore everything apart. Crack. The ice steps in front of Lu Xiuwei were broken like tofu, and the shining spearhead stabbed his chest. Lu Xiuwei stepped back. Behind him, the endless sword rain and leaves enveloped him. As the flames burned, the silver spear hit his head again. Fast, dense, coherent, and domineering. In this state, Li Tianlan's every move seemed to carry a kind of real invincible momentum, which was irresistible and unstoppable. Wherever the silver spear passed, with the help of the wind and thunder veins, even Lu Xiuwei had to dodge temporarily. He kept retreating. Li Tianlan's attack became more and more crazy, and Lu Xiuwei couldn't find any chance to fight back. He kept retreating again and again. He could only defend. The flames in Lu Xiuwei's hands burned more and more fiercely, and his thin body retreated between two trees quietly. Li Tianlan's eyes were deathly still, and he chased after him without hesitation and chopped with the spear. Go to hell! Lu Xiuwei suddenly shouted, and the flames in his hands suddenly rose. In the blink of an eye, a big saber made of flames appeared in his hands. Lu Xiuwei took a step forward, got close to Li Tianlan, and chopped down with the saber. In close combat, long weapons were a complete burden. When Li Tianlan struck down with his spear, the spear would at most fall on his head, but his saber was enough to split him in half. Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows, held the spear with both hands, and suddenly raised it over his head. Crack. The silver spear was directly stuck between two trees because it was too long, and it couldn't move forward or backward. Lu Xiuwei's fire saber fiercely chopped on the silver spear. It was silent, but the water and fire were surging. Before the momentum of the saber was exhausted, Lu Xiuwei had already gathered his strength and exerted more force, from chopping down to chopping up. Now that the silver spear was stuck in the trees, How could the arrogant boy in front of him resist? With his hand? Lu Xiaowei seemed to see the scene of Li Tianlan's arm being chopped off. The scene really appeared. In the shrill scream, blood splashed, and an arm flew directly into the sky and fell to the ground. But it was not Li Tianlan's arm, but Lu Xiaowei's arm that held the saber. At that moment, Li Tianlan didn't defend at all. Naturally, there was defense in the martial arts he practiced, but the ultimate attack had long been engraved in his bones and blood, and had even become an instinct. Facing the saber from below, Li Tianlan directly put away the human emperor stuck in the trees. The 2-meter-long spear instantly shrank and became a metal tube less than 20 centimeters long. Li Tianlan held the metal tube with both hands and pulled it to both ends. In an instant, the sword light was like lightning. The metal tube was divided into two, and two slender sword blades directly popped out of the metal tube, and the horrible sword intent instantly broke out. It seemed to be the sword intent that had been sealed for a long time. It was distant, sharp, fierce, and unparalleled in the world. The two trees blocking the human emperor were directly and completely torn apart in less than a second, and the thick trunks were chopped into countless pieces flying in the air. Li Tianlan's sword light did not stop. He blocked Lu Xiaowei's fire saber with one sword and chopped off one of his arms with the other. Li Tianlan's eyes were cold, and he held two swords in his hands. The bright sword light danced wildly in the woods, and the horrible sword energy rose and fell like the tide, never stopping. At the same time, the east of the woods, the end of the maneuver. There were two big screens erected in front of Zhuang Huayang and other teachers of the Sky Academy, and almost everyone's eyes were focused on the second screen. The first screen was divided into countless small squares, showing the scenes of the freshmen in the maze, and there were many scenes of fighting. The second screen, which was responsible for showing the situation of the whole woods, had only one scene at this time. On the screen, dense leaves were flying in the air, and sword light rose from time to time, cutting the curtain-like leaves into pieces. Then, more leaves directly filled the gap. Lu Xiaowei's scream came through the screen, making everyone's scalp numb. Under the cover of the leaves, no one could see the real fighting scene, but everyone still watched carefully, trying to find some clues from the sword light that occasionally pierced the sky. In the whole battlefield, the trees within a radius of dozens of meters were all dancing wildly. Wherever the scream went, there would be sword light. Then, the trees were completely torn apart by the sword energy that seemed to have gone out of control. The trees fell down one by one and disappeared, but the sword light did not show any sign of decline. Instead, it became more and more fierce. No one could see the real fighting scene, but everyone's mind was filled with a scene that made their scalps numb. Just by looking at the momentum, it could be seen how miserable the battlefield covered by leaves was being torn by the sword light. Being in a mess was an understatement. "Headmaster, I'll go and have a look." In the oppressive silence, Gu Yunxia, who was sitting behind Zhuang Huayang, suddenly stood up with a determined look. "Sit down," Zhuang Huayang said calmly without raising his eyelids. But, Gu Yunxia's expression was uncertain. Lu Xiaowei was her confidant in the Sky Academy, and the whole Lu family was one of the most important peripheral forces of Kunlun City. Now that Lu Xiaowei was in danger, she had to help him. "Headmaster, Director Xiaowei is highly respected in the Sky Academy and a very capable teacher. Now he has obviously suffered a loss. If we don't help him, it will disappoint his colleagues." Gu Yunxia hesitated and directly dragged all the teachers in, ready to use them to resist the pressure from Zhuang Huayang. "Disappoint?" Zhuang Huayang smiled noncommittally. "When Director Xiaowei attacked that freshman just now, why weren't you afraid that the freshman would be disappointed? When Director Xiaowei chased him into the woods, why didn't you do anything? When the deputy director of the school took the initiative to attack the freshman, ask for his weapon, and protect his relative, why didn't you do anything? Now you're telling me that you're disappointed? Yunxia, there's something wrong with your position. Remember, you're the director of teaching of the Sky Academy, not the protector of a deputy director. Sit down." Gu Yunxia's expression changed dramatically. She gritted her teeth and sat down without saying a word, her face livid. At this point, if she still insisted on saving Lu Xiaowei, she would really be going against Zhuang Huayang. She took a deep breath. She stared at the second screen with cold eyes, and the killing intent and doubt flashed in her eyes. How could Lu Xiaowei lose? What was happening beneath the leaves? How could he lose? Lu Xiaowei was also thinking about this. Now he could only dodge in embarrassment under Li Tianlan's double swords, and even the most basic counterattack was difficult for him. Before this, he never thought that Li Tianlan could be so horrible. He had such abundant sword intent, but he had to use a spear. Damn it. An unprecedented movement technique, a rare and strange weapon, and a relentless ruthlessness. These were all the reasons for his failure, but it was useless to think about them now. The pain of losing an arm spread throughout his body. Blood flowed, and his consciousness was a little blurred. His body was filled with pain and exhaustion, which made it impossible for him to fully concentrate. Even the flame on his body was gradually weakening. He lost. Lu Xiaowei knew very well that this time, he had suffered a crushing defeat. From today on, he might become the laughing stock of the whole Sky Academy. It was all because of the freshman in front of him. A strong hatred rose from his heart, so strong that he almost forgot about his hatred and exhaustion. He dodged the sword light in embarrassment, but his eyes gradually became firm. What kind of young man was he? In the fierce sword light, Lu Xiaowei seemed to see the rise of the Chosen One, all the way to the peak of the invincible realm. Kill him. If he didn't die, the whole Lu family would suffer a disaster in the future. He still had the power to strike. After this strike, even if he became the laughing stock of the Sky Academy, even if he had to recuperate for a long time, even if he fell to the ice-condensing realm, as long as he could kill him, everything would be worth it. The sword light danced. The fire around Lu Xiaowei suddenly flared up. The vast fire rose into the sky, as if the whole forest was burning. Lu Xiaowei's pupils suddenly became extremely fanatical. He looked at Li Tianlan with unrelieved hatred in his eyes and said ferociously, "Go to hell, bastard." The soaring flame kept condensing in his roar and finally condensed into a nearly solid long flame saber. "Go to hell." Lu Xiaowei roared and fiercely chopped down. The unique skill of the Lu family. 6 directions chop. Among all the moves that Lu Tianqing had learned in his life, 6 directions chop was definitely one of the most powerful moves. Countless strong enemies had been defeated by this move. The flame was dazzling. The long saber chopped down. The falling saber almost blocked all of Li Tianlan's retreat. Unavoidable. Li Tianlan suddenly looked up. In his pupils, there was a long saber condensed by flames, like the smile of the god of death. The closer the long saber was, the closer death was. He narrowed his eyes tightly, held the 2 swords, and suddenly strode forward, then took a small step to the left. His posture was extremely strange, but it was as fast as a shooting star. Front and back, left and right. Every time Li Tianlan took a step, his steps were different. In an instant, countless footprints were left in front of Lu Xiaowei. At this moment, Li Tianlan was still moving, but Lu Xiaowei was not sure whether Li Tianlan was moving forward, backward, left, or right. Lu Xiaowei's pupils instantly contracted to the limit. He finally knew what this set of body movements was. In an instant, his hatred for Li Tianlan deepened countless times. 10 years ago, a martial arts genius in Zhongzhou State successfully entered the invincible realm. In the second month after he entered the invincible realm, the genius directly challenged Lu Tianqing, one of the strongest experts in Zhongzhou State at that time. The 2 sides agreed to fight on Mount Taibai. Lu Tianqing, who had been in the invincible realm for many years, fought with the genius from morning to dusk. Lu Tianqing was killed in the fight and didn't even get out of Mount Taibai. Since then, the genius's body movements became one of the top unique skills in the dark world. It was precisely because of the restraint of that body movement on Lu Tianqing. The drawbacks of the unique martial arts skill of the Lu family were widely known. But now, that famous movement technique had actually appeared in the hands of the freshman opposite him. The long flame saber was still roaring and burning. Li Tianlan's body kept moving. At this time, Lu Xiaowei couldn't even be sure whether Li Tianlan was still moving. How could he lock on when his sight and feeling couldn't be sure? Boom! The long saber finally fell, but the falling point was ridiculously wrong. The blade directly chopped 2 meters away from Li Tianlan. Around them, the forest within dozens of meters suddenly burned wildly. Li Tianlan had taken another step and appeared in front of Lu Xiaowei. The long sword in his hand was against Lu Xiaowei's throat. Tao! Lu Xiaowei opened his mouth to shout, but Li Tianlan directly interrupted him. His eyes were cold, and with the arrogance and indifference of a winner, he said calmly, "Kneel." "How can you? I asked you to kneel." Lu Xiaowei finally recovered from the shock. He looked at Li Tianlan and suddenly burst into laughter. "Kneel? Dream on. You want me to kneel? So what if I don't kneel? You dared to cut off the arm of the deputy director of the Sky Academy, which is equal to hurting a teacher. This is disobedience. Let's see who can protect you." When some people talked about rules, they would talk about strength. But when they used strength, they would talk about rules. Li Tianlan smiled and narrowed his eyes. "You're the deputy director of the Sky Academy now? Didn't you appear as Lu Dongchao's uncle? Bastard. I've always been the deputy director of the Sky Academy, and that's my only identity. You'll be expelled from the school. You." Swish. Li Tianlan directly stabbed Lu Xiaowei's throat with his sword. The blade went through his throat, and blood dripped. It was straightforward. Lu Xiaowei suddenly opened his eyes, and a trace of chagrin and regret flashed in his eyes. But more than that, he couldn't believe it. You dare to kill, you're just Lu Dongchao's uncle. Why can't I dare to kill you?" Li Tianlan looked into Lu Xiaowei's eyes and said calmly. Bang! Lu Xiaowei's body fell to the ground, but he still opened his eyes wide and looked in Li Tianlan's direction. Chapter 25. In the battlefield that was torn apart by the sword light, Lu Xiaowei's body fell down among the broken wood and coke, raising a lot of smoke and dust. The sword went through his throat without leaving any room. Li Tianlan didn't know how Lu Xiaowei felt about such a way of death, but he felt wronged for him. An expert at the peak of the fire-flaming realm died in the hands of a nonentity who had just entered the chi-controlling realm. Lu Xiaowei probably never dreamed of such a way of death. The woods became quiet. Li Tianlan breathed gently and forcibly suppressed the taste of blood in his throat. After a long while, he moved his body and put the 2 swords in his hands together. The 2 slender long swords disappeared, and the human emperor once again became the inconspicuous metal tube, which he put into his sleeve. Lu Xiaowei's body was lying on the ground, covered by smoke and dust. The majestic deputy director of the Sky Academy was now in tatters, and he was as embarrassed as a stray dog. Li Tianlan reached out and closed his eyes, which he refused to close even if he died. He said to himself indifferently, "This is a good place with good feng shui, suitable for a long sleep. What are you dissatisfied with?" In the dust, Lu Xiaowei's eyes, which were forcibly closed, opened again, and there seemed to be a trace of unwillingness and regret in his dim pupils. This was probably a true death with everlasting regret. Li Tianlan twitched the corner of his mouth, and his eyes were indifferent. As he said to Lu Xiaowei in the maze, he had no way out. Hand over the human emperor? Break his own arm? Li Tianlan couldn't accept such a condition. If Lu Xiaowei had left him a way out in the maze, he might not have killed Lu Xiaowei today, not to mention what would happen in the future. When Lu Xiaowei blocked all the ways out for Li Tianlan, he also completely ruined his own life. "Damn you," Li Tianlan said again. Li Tianlan added. Then he stood up, identified the direction, and rushed toward the southeast end of the maneuver. Behind him, countless water droplets suddenly appeared in the void. The water droplets scattered, completely extinguishing the fire on the ground and washing the dust off Lu Xiaowei's face. The leaves fluttering in the air slowly fell down, completely covering the battlefield. The leaves that blocked the satellite dispersed. In the east of the forest, the teachers at the end of the maneuver finally saw everything on the battlefield through the satellite. Branches that had been burned into charcoal by the flames, pieces of ice scattered everywhere, tree trunks that had been cut by sword lights, deep pits on the ground, fallen leaves, and flying dust. The entire battlefield had been destroyed by the terrifying and fierce battle. Everyone subconsciously held their breath, and their eyes followed the floating leaves on the screen. They were eager to know the final result of this battle. Then, they saw Lu Xiaowei lying on the ground with his eyes wide open. Everyone gasped. Most of the teachers stared blankly at Lu Xiaowei's body on the screen, thinking that they had seen it wrong. But the sword wound on Lu Xiaowei's throat was so clear that it was a little dazzling. All of this showed that Lu Xiaowei was killed by that freshman. How did he do it? Even in the entire Sky Academy, Lu Xiaowei was one of the few experts. Perhaps his strength was not at the top, but he was definitely at the forefront. Such a figure was killed by a freshman, which put a lot of pressure on many teachers. More people subconsciously looked at Gu Yunxia's expression. Lu Xiaowei's death was definitely a considerable blow to Gu Yunxia. The teaching office of the Sky Academy had 1 director and 3 deputy directors. Among the 4 directors, Lu Xiaowei was the only expert who had not entered the thunder-shocking realm. When the school was forming the school's leadership before the beginning of the semester, Gu Yunxia made great efforts to promote Lu Xiaowei to the teaching office. She even made the relatively young Qin Ke the deputy director, which was part of the result of Gu Yunxia's compromise with Zhuang Huayang. Gu Yunxia's original intention of letting Lu Xiaowei to the teaching office was to expand her right to speak in the Sky Academy. But now Lu Xiaowei was killed by a freshman at the beginning of the semester. Gu Yunxia didn't care about how much face she had lost, but at least her situation in the Sky Academy would be more difficult in the future. Under the watchful eyes of the public, Gu Yunxia's face tightened and her resentful eyes stared at the screen. The anger that almost overwhelmed her reason kept brewing in her heart. The sympathetic, or gloating eyes from all directions added fuel to the fire, making her furious heart explode in an instant. She suddenly stood up, looked at Zhuang Huayang beside her, and said in a gloomy tone, "Headmaster, Deputy Director Lu was killed." Yes, what a pity. Compared with Gu Yunxia's rage, Zhuang Huayang seemed calm and even had a smile on his face when he said this. Gu Yunxia became more and more irritable. She looked at Zhuang Huayang with undisguised coldness and said, "Headmaster, I think we have to do something. Deputy Director Lu can't be sacrificed in vain." Sacrifice. In the Sky Academy, a special warfare academy with a strong military atmosphere, this word was undoubtedly one of the most serious words. Zhuang Huayang raised his eyebrows and said with a faint smile, "Oh? What are you going to do, Director Gu?" "I'm going to catch the little bastard named Li Tianlan now, abolish his martial arts, expel him from the Sky Academy, and report it to Kunlun City and the Ministry of State Security to send him to the Special Warfare Court," Gu Yunxia said without hesitation. Her cold tone seemed to be squeezed out from between her teeth, with unspeakable viciousness. This kind of bastard, who has no respect for his elders and doesn't know how to respect his teachers, will be a total scourge if he stays here. Several ordinary teachers near Gu Yunxia were also frightened and their scalps tingled. It was already a very serious punishment to abolish his martial arts and expel him from the Sky Academy. Reporting it to Kunlun City and the Ministry of State Security was tantamount to labeling Li Tianlan as never employed by the special warfare system of Zhongzhou State. Sending him to the Special Warfare Court was undoubtedly the most severe punishment. The role of the Special Warfare Court was similar to that of the military court, but it was harsher. Once sent to the Special Warfare Court, few people would have a good end. Gu Yunxia was completely going to punish Li Tianlan to death. It's a joke. Before Zhuang Huayang opened his mouth, a wild and unruly voice suddenly sounded with undisguised disdain and contempt. "I don't think this freshman did anything wrong. Why should he abolish his martial arts and expel him from the Sky Academy? Ridiculous." Lu Xiaowei shamelessly broke the rules of the maneuver. Can't he let him fight back? Gu Yunxia, are you blind or deaf? Lu Xiaowei himself said that he didn't show up as the deputy director of the Sky Academy. What nonsense are you talking about? Respect his teachers? Bullshit. What this freshman did today was self-defense. If he didn't do this, would he really have to hand over his weapon and cripple his own arm to satisfy you, Director Gu? Does the Sky Academy need such a spineless coward? Does it? You. Gu Yunxia flew into a rage. Her face, which looked extremely mean, turned red, but she couldn't say a word. Near Zhuang Huayang, a middle-aged man stood up, nodded to Zhuang Huayang casually, and said with a smile, "Headmaster, do you think what I said makes sense? What kind of bullshit senior is Lu Xiaowei doing today? It's a disgrace to the Sky Academy. He broke the rules of the maneuver for personal revenge and killed the talents of the Imperial Special Warfare System. What the hell? Does such a person deserve the word sacrifice? I suggest throwing his body out of the Sky Academy, so as not to pollute the land of the Sky Academy." Yi Fengcheng. You've gone too far. Gu Yunxia's anger completely broke out, and she screamed and roared at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man was slightly startled, and then he laughed out loud. His figure was ordinary, and even slightly short, but when he stood there, he had an indescribable arrogance and fierce aura. His appearance could still be considered handsome, but the 5 or 6 centimeters long scar on the left side of his face destroyed the overall beauty of his overall beauty, making him look more fierce and valiant. Am I going too far, or are you angry with shame? Look at the disgusting things your confidant has done. It's a good thing for Li Tianlan to kill this black sheep, but throwing him out of the Sky Academy is a light punishment. How dare you say to expel Li Tianlan and send him to the Special Warfare Court? Don't you care about your face at all? If you dare to do anything to this freshman, you'll have to go through me first. At worst, we'll fight to the death now. Gu Yunxia, do you dare or not? Gu Yunxia's shriveled body trembled with anger. She pointed at Yi Fengcheng and said, you, for a long time, but she couldn't say anything else. As for the ordinary teachers behind them, they didn't dare to say anything. For them, the scene in front of them was a real fight between immortals. This year's senior officials of the Sky Academy were almost clearly divided into 3 forces. Headmaster Zhuang Huayang's force was undoubtedly the largest. Second was the force of Gu Yunxia, the director of teaching. She was backed by Kunlun City, the power center of the special warfare system of Zhongzhou State. Therefore, even if her force was weaker than Zhuang Huayang's, she was full of confidence most of the time. The third force was headed by Yi Fengcheng, the director of the political department of the Sky Academy. This force had existed almost since the establishment of the Sky Academy, and its foundation was very solid. Yi Fengcheng himself was a core member of a top wealthy family in Yuzhou, the capital, so the follow-up development potential of this force was also not weak. Even outside the Sky Academy, these 3 people were now the backbone of the 3 super forces in Zhongzhou State. At this time, no one knew how fierce the conflict would go, so who dared to speak rashly? If this kind of conflict spread outside the Sky Academy and the 3 super behemoths took action, no ordinary teacher could bear that kind of pressure. That's enough. Seeing that Gu Yunxia was about to fight with Yi Fengcheng in anger, Zhuang Huayang finally said, "On the first day of school, you 2 senior officials of the school are quarreling. What do you think it is?" He waved his hand and said in an unquestionable tone, "Sit down." Yi Fengcheng glanced at Gu Yunxia with disdain and sat down lazily. His eyes continued to wander on the 2 big screens in front of him. Gu Yunxia stood still and looked directly at Zhuang Huayang with cold eyes. "Headmaster, Deputy Director Lu." "What Deputy Director Lu?" Zhuang Huayang laughed and said, "What I saw was just Lu Dongchao's uncle." Lu Xiaowei said it himself. "Didn't you hear it, Yunxia?" Gu Yunxia was tongue-tied. This was the part where she was in the wrong. In the past, she was eloquent, but what Lu Xiaowei did was really disgusting. Even if she wanted to speak up for him now, she didn't know what to say. "Yunxia, what is the Sky Academy in your eyes? What is the position of the senior officials of the Sky Academy in your eyes? Can we senior officials give up our principles for a relative?" When you want to kill someone, you throw away your official identity, and when you are killed, you take out your official identity? Why is the official identity of our senior officials providing us with a reasonable protection to kill people? And the people you kill are not enemies, but your own students. In your eyes, is it normal for such a senior official of the Sky Academy? Is it reasonable? Zhuang Huayang looked at Gu Yunxia and asked slowly. His tone was not fast, but every word he said brought great pressure to Gu Yunxia. Although he did not speak harshly, the meaning in his words was also very heavy. Headmaster, I didn't mean that. Gu Yunxia said subconsciously. I don't care what you mean. Zhuang Huayang waved his hand and said, I only know that your proposal just now is very unreasonable. As for Lu Xiuwei, he broke the rules of the maneuver as Lu Dongchao's uncle, and now he was killed as Lu Dongchao's uncle. This is a personal grudge. Whoever kills who lives and who dies, they all deserve it. If you don't want to discredit the Sky Academy, you have to accept this. Do you understand? Headmaster, you're wise. Sitting nearby, Yi Fengqing threw a cigarette to Zhuang Huayang with a smile and said, during the entrance maneuver, the deputy director of teaching openly tore off his official identity to break the rules of the maneuver and kill a freshman. In the end, he was killed instead. Tut tut, people will not only question the moral character of the senior officials of the Sky Academy, but also the strength of the senior officials of the Sky Academy. What kind of F***king deputy director is this? In addition to discrediting the Sky Academy, he has no effect at all. He deserves to die. As for the freshman, well, he is a talent, and the school should focus on training him. Zhuang Huayang smiled. He said that Lu Xiuwei deserved to die, which was not the same meaning as Yi Fengqing. But at this time, he did not bother to explain anything, just looked at Yi Fengqing and said with a smile, Fengqing, are you also interested in that freshman? Yes. Yi Fengqing keenly captured this word. His eyes turned cold, and his smile faded. Oh, talents are rare. Zhuang Huayang nodded and said no more, but he was sure in his heart that the reason why Yi Fengqing jumped out to attack Gu Yunxia was not only because Lu Xiuwei was a little rude to Wang Yuetong, but also because he really wanted to win over Li Tianlan. He looked at the screen, and his eyes fell on Li Tianlan. He sighed in his heart and shook his head. Gu Yunxia was also looking at Li Tianlan on the screen. With her back to Yi Fengqing and Zhuang Huayang, she narrowed her eyes tightly. The resentment and killing intent in her eyes were constantly surging, as if there was no rest. On the screen, Li Tianlan was walking quickly in the woods. He lowered his head and opened the credit counting table on his wrist. Gu Yunxia snorted, gritted her teeth, and sat back in her seat. The credit counting table of the Sky Academy had a lot of functions, but it was not complicated. In the student code of conduct, there were instructions about the use of the credit counting table. After careful study, Li Tianlan could basically master it. The credit counting table had positioning and communication functions. In order not to put Li Beidian and others in danger, Li Tianlan turned off the wristwatch as soon as he rushed out of the maze. At this time, Lu Xiuwei was dead. He opened the map on the wristwatch and directly found 2 red dots on the map. His wristwatch only had the friends of Ning Qianqing and Li Beidian, so he could only locate them. As for Wang Yuetong and Yu Qinyan, they should still be with them at this time. Li Tianlan pressed a button, said hello, and asked directly, Beidian, is there anything going on there? At the other end of the woods, Li Beidian and others who were walking all the way east had already noticed something wrong. They were even sure that Li Tianlan did not go all the way east. At this time, they were hesitating whether to split up to find Li Tianlan. Hearing Li Tianlan's voice, Li Beidian's anxious and surprised voice came directly through the table. Tianlan, how are you? F***CKU, why did you turn off the positioning? Don't you understand that there is strength in numbers? Stupid, stupid as a pig. You are going to be F***king killed. How can I go back in? Li Beidian paused and then said, where is Lu Xiuwei, that old bastard? I am still alive, so he is naturally dead. Chapter 26. Following the positioning information on the map, when Li Tianlan, Li Beidian, and the others met up, the battle that was sprinting toward the finish line was also coming to an end. About 6 or 7 senior students of the Sky Academy of different sizes, male and female, were lying on the ground. At this time, all of them were unconscious. Specks of dark red blood spattered on the surrounding trees and grass, which was ghastly and glaring. Li Baitian's face was pale. Being carried on Ning Qianqing's back, blood was still flowing from the corner of his mouth. He was much taller than Ning Qianqing, so even if he was lying on Ning Qianqing's back, his feet would touch the ground from time to time, which looked a little funny. Ning Qianqing seemed to be in a better state, but at this time, he was also covered in blood, and there were 2 deep knife wounds on his arms that had not been bandaged. Yu Qinyan was lying near them, in a coma. Wang Yuetong, known as the Siren, had undoubtedly become the most eye-catching existence in the whole battlefield. The vast sword energy rotated around her tall and slender body. Behind her, a huge sword completely condensed from mysterious ice hung in the air and trembled slightly. Different from the one seen in the maze, the huge sword behind her at this time was 5 or 6 meters long and more than 2 meters wide. The heavy sword body only trembled slightly, but it made a harsh sound in the air. The simple and heavy sword intent condensed and dissipated around the huge sword. Wang Yuedong's face was expressionless, and her enchanting little face was full of arrogance and indifference. Li Tianlan subconsciously glanced around and looked at the large pieces of cut trees on the battlefield. He could completely imagine the posture of Wang Yuetong controlling the huge sword behind her to attack with all her strength. It might not be appropriate to describe such an enchanting woman as majestic and domineering, but at this moment, in Li Tianlan's imagination, Wang Yuetong, who controlled the huge ice sword behind her to defeat all her opponents, was indeed extraordinarily majestic and domineering. Li Tianlan calmly stopped outside the range of Wang Yuetong's sword chi and coughed. At this moment, Wang Yuetong was obviously still immersed in the rhythm of the battle just now. At this time, once he entered the range of her sword chi, what awaited Li Tianlan was likely to be a full blow from her. Li Tianlan had never heard of such a huge sword, such a unique skill, and the Wang family of Beihai. But at this moment, feeling the vast and delicate sword chi, he was completely sure that it was a top unique skill in the entire dark world. Li Tianlan was still in the ice-condensing realm. It was not difficult for him to take the blow, but it was not easy either. "Are you guys okay?" Li Tianlan asked. As he spoke, the silent battlefield suddenly became lively. Li Beidian, who was lying on Ning Qianqing's back, quickly raised his head and glanced at Li Tianlan. Seeing that Li Tianlan was not missing an arm or a leg, the corner of his mouth twitched and he said weakly, "Damn you. It's all right." Ning Qianqing also seemed to heave a sigh of relief and a smile appeared on his face. He bounced Li Beidian on his back and said with a smile, "But this fellow will probably need to rest for a few days. Since the scene of a beauty rescuing a bear has come out, of course he will be fine." The indifference and pride on Wang Yuedong's face disappeared little by little. A smile that could almost enchant people appeared on her face again. The huge sword on her back quickly dissipated, became blurred, and finally disappeared without a trace. Wang Yuetong carried the unconscious Yu Qinyan on her back and walked to Li Tianlan's side. She stared at Li Tianlan with her clear eyes. After a while, she said in a strange tone, "Did you really kill Lu Xiaowei?" "It was just a fluke." Li Tianlan was unwilling to talk more. He just looked at the unconscious Yu Qinyan and frowned. "What the hell is going on?" "I was sneak attacked." Wang Yuetong seemed to be a little dissatisfied with Li Tianlan's perfunctory answer. She wrinkled her nose and said, "A brilliant disciple from Mount Shu wanted to defeat Lu Dongyu with one move in the maze. He barely managed to do it. Although he did not use his sword, he was seriously injured. After he came out, he was distracted because he was worried about you in an environment that could be dangerous at any time. As a result, he was sneak attacked and was the first to lose his combat power. As for Qin Yan, she is still too naive and timid. What she has learned is not suitable for the rhythm of the Sky Academy's maneuver. It's all about killing people. Therefore, she was restrained and was the second to be eliminated. Xianxing took care of Li Taishu and Qin Yan, and I was the only one left to deal with those sneak attackers. Li Beidian seemed to be a little ashamed. He struggled to climb down from Ning Qianxing's back and said with no confidence, "Believe it or not, I can definitely kill Lu Dongyu in seconds with that sword." "I do," Wang Yuetong said with a smile, "but even if you can kill Lu Dongyu in seconds, how good can you be? I guess you are really weak, right? Am I right? Li Taishu? My name is Li Beidian." Li Beidian was about to cry. "Damn it, when I was in Mount Shu, I was always called Taishu, or Martial Uncle Taishu by my senior brother. My ass, I'm not weak at all, okay? Taishu. If I continue to call you by that name, I can't even marry a wife in the future. My name is Li Beidian. Whoever calls me Li Taishu again, I'll fall out with him." "Got it, Taishu," Ning Qianxing said with a poker face. "Drunbility Cheng. You. What's wrong, Brother Su?" Li Tianlan held back his laughter and walked up to them. He said sincerely, "Thank you. It's not necessary." Ning Qianxing shook his head. "We are brothers in the same dormitory. Don't be so polite." Li Beidian also shook his head and looked at Li Tianlan. He had a lot of questions in his heart, such as Li Tianlan's realm and how he killed Lu Xiuwei. But when the questions were on the tip of his tongue, he held back and said, "Let's go first. It's not far from the finish line. If you have anything to say, wait until the maneuver is over." "I do want to go." Li Tianlan smiled. The silver human emperor slipped quietly into his palm and he held it tightly. "But I'm afraid someone won't let me." Li Beidian was stunned, and his eyes became alert. Wang Yuetong also moved to Li Tianlan's side. She put Yu Qinyan down and stood side by side with Li Tianlan. Li Beidian and Ning Qianxing looked at each other. They were not worried. Among the 5 people now, Li Beidian and Yu Qinyan had no fighting capacity, but Ning Qianxing could still fight. The most important thing was that Wang Yuetong and Li Tianlan were already standing together. They had all seen Wang Yuetong's attack just now. This little woman, known as the Wang Siren but with few specific rumors, was more than powerful and domineering just now. When the 5 or 6 meter long giant sword came out, it was really unparalleled in the world. From the beginning to the end of the battle, the whole process took less than 10 seconds. It was a complete suppression. On the list of the top 10 experts of the young generation, Wang Yuetong was ranked behind Ning Qianxing, but her actual combat capacity was much higher than Ning Qianxing's. Needless to say, such a person standing together with Li Tianlan, who could kill Lu Xiuwei, an expert at the peak of the fire-flaming realm, at the ice-condensing realm, gave them a sense of security. Light footsteps sounded in the woods dozens of meters away. Li Tianlan gently rubbed the human emperor in his hand, and he was as quiet as a statue. Behind Wang Yuetong, the giant ice sword rose again. The sword energy spread and completely enveloped Li Beidian and the others. In this domain, no matter who was attacked, Wang Yuetong could immediately condense her sword energy at one point and attack any enemy. Li Tianlan frowned subconsciously, and his body tensed up a little quietly. Then, as if he had realized something, he relaxed again. It was a short time, and the change was extremely fast. But in an instant, Wang Yuetong keenly captured some subtle changes. She suddenly turned her head and opened her watery and charming eyes wide, looking at Li Tianlan with a trace of undisguised shock. "Senior brother Tianlan, how did you do it?" Wang Yuetong asked. She took a step toward Li Tianlan, and her delicate body was almost attached to Li Tianlan's. "What?" Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows slightly. "You know what I'm talking about." Wang Yuetong looked at Li Tianlan persistently, with a trace of scorching and seriousness in her eyes that could make any man shudder. At that moment, her sword chi naturally spread around, trying to envelop everyone and form a whole. But when the sword chi enveloped Li Tianlan, Wang Yuetong found that her sword chi was completely isolated. All the sword chi could not get close to Li Tianlan. The land where he was seemed to have become a world of its own, invulnerable to all enemies. What did this mean? It not only meant that Li Tianlan's method was ingenious, but also meant that in the domain shrouded by Wang Yuedong's sword energy, if she was Li Tianlan's enemy, then this unique skill of hers would be a great flaw and weakness. How could the unique skill of the Wang family of Beihai have a flaw? Wang Yuedong's heart beat violently. She looked at Li Tianlan, hoping that he could give her an answer. But Li Tianlan kept silent from beginning to end. Senior brother Tianlan, you don't trust me, do you? Wang Yuetong suddenly said. Do you trust me, junior sister Yuetong? Li Tianlan replied calmly. His first impression of Wang Yuetong was not bad, but he did not dare to trust her too much. It was completely out of instinct. He always felt that this junior sister was a little too smart. It seemed that if he revealed a little more, she could guess his identity. This sense of danger made Li Tianlan want to stay away from her completely subconsciously. Wang Yuetong also fell silent. Trust? If she was just an ordinary girl, this word was really worthless in her heart. But she was not. She was a siren in everyone's eyes, a princess in everyone's eyes, and a core member of the top rich and powerful family in Zhongzhou State. Trust was a luxury for her. It was not that she could not have it, but it was not easy to get it. Wang Yuetong gently bit her lip and blinked her charming eyes. For a moment, she could not tell what she was feeling. The footsteps were getting closer and more obvious. While Li Tianlan was listening attentively and judging the number of people, Wang Yuedong's voice rang in his ear again. Senior brother Tianlan, do you have a girlfriend? Her voice was low, husky, and charming. Her slightly trembling voice seemed to be transmitted to the depths of people's hearts, with irresistible temptation. Ning Qiansheng and Li Baitian's bodies shook at the same time, but they did not speak. Li Tianlan thought of Qin Weibai immediately. He thought of the woman who could not be described with any flowery words. Girlfriend, Li Tianlan was a little lost in thought. He had not been in contact with Qin Weibai for a long time, just a day. But in this one day, she directly walked into his heart in a manner that could not be refused. Even if he wanted to, he could not. Would she be his girlfriend? Li Tianlan laughed at himself and said softly, no. His voice was light and breezy, but in Wang Yuedong's ears, there was a hint of indifference and loneliness in his voice. Wang Yuedong's heart trembled slightly. Blushing because of what she said just now, she went further and said softly, I don't have a boyfriend either. Damn, it hurts my eyes, no, it hurts my ears. Yuetong, should I not have shown up? Our little princess actually took the initiative to confess her love to someone? Is it possible? Is it possible? Brother, I advise you not to say yes. Don't say yes. If you say yes, it is estimated that the number of people who want to challenge you can line up from Huading to Yuzhou. You have to take it easy, take it easy. A playful voice suddenly rang out. In the sight of Li Tianlan and others, a short and fat figure appeared about 10 meters away from them with several senior students. Li Tianlan was stunned. Wang Yuetong seemed to be a little surprised too. But when she heard the content of the other's words, her blushing beautiful face became even redder. The huge sword behind her also carried a trace of undisguised killing intent. She stamped her feet hard and gritted her teeth. Fan Haoyu, which eye of yours saw me confess my love? I dare you to say it again. The smile on the short and fat man's face froze. Looking at the angry killing intent in Wang Yuedong's eyes, he suddenly felt a little embarrassed and did not dare to come forward for a moment. He rolled his eyes and accidentally found Ning Qiansheng, who was carrying Li Baitian on his back. He laughed and said, Qiansheng is also here. Long time no see. Why are you together? He took a tentative step forward and at the same time, carefully glanced at Wang Yuedong's face. If you want to come over, then come over. What are you looking at? The huge sword behind Wang Yuetong disappeared again and she said fiercely. Fan Haoyu walked over with an embarrassed smile and rubbed his hands. He seemed to be a little guilty and did not know what to say for a moment. Fatty Fan, why are you here? Wang Yuedong's face was still red, and she looked at Fan Haoyu curiously and asked. This place is the territory of our elite organization. Just now I heard something nearby and knew that someone attacked the freshmen, so I rushed over to get a few credit meters. Who knew you were here? Fan Haoyu said with a wry smile. Wang Yuetong giggled and let go of all her hostility. She pulled Li Tianlan's arm with her slender and white fingers and said with a smile, Senior brother Tianlan, let me introduce you. This is Fan Haoyu, you can call him Fatty Fan. He is my friend. He and his elite organization are also one of the organizations of senior students who stayed in school last year. But this Fatty is different from Lu Dongchao and his sister. Don't underestimate him. Lu Dongchao and his sister are powerful when they fight together. If you face this Fatty alone, no one can survive 3 moves from him. He is an expert at the peak of the fire-flaming realm. Li Tianlan was shocked. Fan Haoyu in front of him was indeed short and fat. He was less than 1.7 meters tall, but he weighed at least 100 kilograms. Moreover, he liked winking when he spoke, which made him look extremely wretched. He did not look like an expert in any way. But the words, peak of the fire-flaming realm, were enough to dispel all his doubts. Li Tianlan sighed inwardly that he could not judge a book by its cover. He took the initiative to extend his hand and said softly, Hello, I am Li Tianlan. This is senior brother Tianlan, the most outstanding freshman of this year. Wang Yuetong grinned and casually put a high hat on Li Tianlan's head. A strange look flashed across Fan Haoyu's face. Then he held Li Tianlan's hand with a smile and said, Nice to meet you. Ning Qiansheng and Li Beidian stood on the other side. They were obviously not interested in such an occasion. By the way, why did you come by yourself? Where is Su Mai? Wang Yuetong asked impatiently when she saw Fan Haoyu shaking Li Tianlan's hand. Like Fan Haoyu, Su Mai was the flag leader of the elite organization. Although his strength was slightly inferior, he was also an expert at the stabilization phase of the fire-flaming realm. They were best friends since childhood. There was no reason for him not to show up at this time. Fan Haoyu's face darkened and he said bitterly, he failed miserably and was injured by a freshman. 10 seconds, or even less than 10 seconds. When I rushed over with my men, Mai was already unconscious. The freshman had already run away. Are you sure it's a freshman? Wang Yuetong frowned and subconsciously glanced at Li Tianlan. In terms of strength, Su Mai was almost on par with Lu Dongchao. If he overthrew Su Mai in 10 seconds, he was almost as good as Li Tianlan. It's a freshman, and the point is that he's in the ice-condensing realm. His name seems to be Gulan. Damn it, I'm so embarrassed this time. Fan Haoyu cursed. Wang Yuedong's eyes flickered thoughtfully. Forget it. Let's not talk about this. Wang Yuetong thought for a while and shook her head. I'll go see Su Mai after the maneuver. Fatty, I want to ask you about someone. Among the senior students who stayed in this year, there's a woman who uses 2 sabers. She's about 1.7 meters tall, very beautiful, and has long hair. What's her name? Such conditions were far from specific. Fortunately, there were not many senior students who stayed in this year. Fan Haoyu thought for a while and said with some uncertainty, Is she fast? Wang Yuedong's eyes lit up and she nodded. Just now, she led some people to sneak attack us. She's really fast. At the first moment, she seriously injured Li. Well, Li Beidian, and one of my roommates. But in the end, she ran away, but I killed all the people who followed her. Fan Haoyu walked over and looked at the senior students who were still on the ground. Then he said with certainty, It should be Du Hanin, but hasn't she been disabled? Strange, Yuetong, Du Hanin is an extraordinary person. Do you want me to tell you some gossip about her? I'm not interested. Wang Yuetong shook her head. We don't have time. We're going to the finish line now. Fatty, It should be okay if I lend you a few people to escort us, right? No problem. Fan Haoyu laughed heartily and waved his hand. Gao Chang. Here. A burly senior ran over and gave a military salute to Fan Haoyu. You escort these students all the way to the finish line. Go and come back quickly. Our mission has just begun, you understand? Fan Haoyu said casually. Understood. Gao Chang said in a loud voice. Fan Haoyu nodded, looked at Wang Yuetong, and said with a smile, this is the number 3 figure of our elite organization. Don't worry, with him following you, no senior student will dare to attack you. Your next journey will be absolutely smooth, I can guarantee that. Thank you. Although he knew that Fan Haoyu's help was all because of Wang Yuetong, he still thanked Fan Haoyu very seriously. Fan Haoyu smiled and waved his hand. Brother, see you after the maneuver. With Gao Chang leading the way, the 5 of them went straight to the finish line. Behind them, Fan Haoyu narrowed his eyes and casually sat on an unconscious senior student with a body of more than 100 kilograms, watching them go farther and farther. In his sight, Wang Yuetong and Li Tianlan walked side by side, and they were getting closer and closer. Chapter 27. Fan Haoyu was not bragging. The elite organization was really a force that could control the situation among the senior students. Li Tianlan didn't care whether it was cheating to use his connections to get to the finish line, and the others didn't raise any objections, which was enough to show that it was feasible. There was a suspicion of cheating, but it really saved a lot of time and effort. Li Tianlan had no reason to refuse such a good thing, nor did he have the capital to refuse. He was still in the ice-condensing realm and could barely fight. If he really didn't care about the consequences, he could stay in the ice-condensing realm for a day or 2. Maybe it wouldn't hurt his foundation as Wang Yuetong said, and he would never reach the invincible realm. But with the strength of the chi-controlling realm, the longer he stayed in the ice-condensing realm, the greater the price he would pay. If he stayed for 1 or 2 more hours now, he might have to wait for 1 or 2 more months to break through the ice-condensing realm in the future. Since Li Tianlan left the border, he always had a sense of urgency that made him unable to breathe. Time was the most important thing to him. He didn't want to delay for 1 or 2 days, let alone 1 or 2 months. About a week before the start of the Sky Academy, Li Tianlan had a fight with Qin Ke because of a misunderstanding. A nonentity less than the chi-controlling realm fought against a thunder-shocking realm expert. One could imagine his injury. In this maneuver, Li Tianlan was originally injured, and he forcibly raised his realm, so his injury was naturally more serious. After coming out of the maze and fighting with Lu Xiaowei, although he had not been fatally injured, his all-out attack had aggravated his injury again. Now Li Tianlan could be said to have real internal injuries, which even hurt his 5 internal organs. Among their temporary group of 5, he was the one who needed to be treated the most. After the maneuver, they would have about a week's vacation, during which they could stay in school to recuperate or go to see the colorful world of Huading. After this week, no matter how the students recovered from their injuries, intensive training and learning would officially begin, as well as a lot of actual combat confrontations and internal maneuvers. In the 3 years of the Sky Academy, if they wanted to get enough credits to compete for the quota that could only be produced every 3 years, personal strength and combat effectiveness were naturally extremely important, but the importance of endurance could not be ignored. Now Gao Chang, the 3rd in command of the elite organization, was willing to personally escort them to the end of the maneuver, which could save them at least 2 or 3 battles. For Li Tianlan, who was eager to stabilize his injury, it was absolutely good news that he could not refuse. However, just as he instinctively wanted to repel Wang Yuetong's sword chi, even with Gao Chang's escort, he did not let down his guard along the way. This vigilance even included Gao Chang, who was leading the way at the front. The 6 of them shuttled through the woods in silence, all the way to the east. In less than half an hour, Li Tianlan found at least 3 places where there were traces of senior students lurking. Perhaps because they saw Gao Chang, no one made a move at all. 40 minutes later, a pool of water came into view. Gao Chang stopped and pointed at the pool in front of them. Everyone, follow the pool for another 300 meters. After turning a corner, you will reach the end. This is as far as I can send you. The pool is the safe zone. Once we step into it, it is equivalent to giving up on the mission or completing the mission. Thank you, Senior. Wang Yuetong smiled sweetly. She was extremely beautiful when she smiled. Her charming eyes squinted slightly with two shallow dimples. As the corners of her mouth rose, her whole body carried a kind of charm that seemed to hook people's hearts. The key was that all this temperament was revealed unintentionally, and it was precisely because it was unintentional that it seemed more fatal. No need. Gao Chang's face turned red. He waved his hand in a flurry and did not even have time to say hello to the others. He turned around and rushed directly into the woods. His figure soon disappeared. As the third in command of the elite organization and his relationship with Fan Haoyu, Gao Chang was no stranger to Wang Yuetong and the Wang family of Beihai, especially the Wang family of Beihai. Over the years, he had heard too many legendary stories about this legendary family. Along the way, he put aside the charm of the little princess of the Wang family, and the mere 4 words of the Wang family of Beihai brought him a lot of pressure. Now that he had successfully completed the mission, he was completely relieved and did not want to stay for another second. When Gao Chang's figure completely disappeared, Li Tianlan and the others began to carefully look at the environment in front of them. The pool in front of them was still in the woods. The water was very shallow, just knee-high. Its length was unknown, but its width was about 300 meters. On the opposite side of the pool was an obvious corner. According to Gao Chang, the corner was the end of the maneuver. Li Tianlan looked at the pool in front of him silently with a calm expression. Crossing a 300-meter wide pool wasn't a big deal, but the most important thing was that the pool was filled with extremely sharp stones. In the clear water, the stones were laid from one end to the other, and it was enough to make one's scalp go numb just by looking at it. Damn it, this is a bit too much. Ning Qiansheng, who had been quiet all this time, could not help but speak. Looking at the sharp stones under the water, his face was extremely ugly. This kind of stone would be even sharper when stepped on after being soaked in water. Even if their military boots were specially made, the 300-meter wide pool might not be able to support them to cross half the distance. When the military boots were pierced by the stones and the sharp edges stabbed into their feet, that feeling was worse than death. And this is running water. Who came up with this stupid idea? It's a scam. Li Beidian was lying on Ning Qiansheng's back, and his tone was a little weak. Li Tianlan understood what he meant. If the pool in front of them was not running water, it would not matter even if the bottom was covered with blades, not to mention stones. All 5 of them were now in the ice-condensing realm. If they used all their strength, they could completely freeze the pool temporarily and step on the ice to cross the pool by force. But there was a world of difference between running water and dead water. Moreover, the water in the pool in front of them was very fast. To freeze this kind of water into ice was equivalent to going against the laws of nature. One could imagine the difficulty. Even if they were not injured, they did not have the ability to completely freeze a pool hundreds of meters wide into ice, not to mention that they were all injured. The physical strength and willpower required were not something that experts in the ice-condensing realm or even the fire-flaming realm could do. Let's go. We have to go sooner or later. There's no point in delaying here. Li Tianlan looked at the rushing water in front of him and said in a calm tone. He casually glanced at Wang Yuetong, who was carrying Yu Qingyan on her back. What do you think, junior sister Yuetong? I'll listen to you, senior brother Tianlan. Wang Yuetong could be said to be the most relaxed person on the scene. She seemed to not take the pool in front of her seriously at all. She casually supported Yu Qingyan's body and said softly, I'm so tired. Li Tianlan was not a fool. How could he not understand such an obvious hint? Indeed, along the way, Ning Qiansheng carried Li Beidian on his back and Wang Yuetong carried Yu Qingyan on her back. It seemed a little unkind for him to be alone. Li Tianlan subconsciously touched his nose and said, let me carry Qingyan for a while. That won't do. Wang Yuetong glanced at Li Tianlan and said with a faint smile, "Men and women should not touch each other." "Senior brother Tianlan, don't you know this? Do you want to take advantage of Qingyan?" She gently raised her tender white hand and patted Yu Qingyan's buttocks. She squinted and said with a smile, "It feels good. It's bouncy and soft. Senior brother, do you want to touch it?" Li Tianlan blushed and retreated in defeat. When it came to women, he was really a virgin. In this era where it was inconceivable to be a virgin at the age of 18 or 19, Li Tianlan, who was about to turn 20, was a real weirdo. Not only was he a virgin, but he still had his first kiss. The topic of women was completely mysterious and taboo to him. Li Tianlan subconsciously glanced at Yu Qingyan's pert buttocks. Because she was lying on her stomach, the shape outlined by the camouflage pants was extremely attractive. It was indeed a beautiful scene. But Li Tianlan could not help but think of Qin Weibai. He could not be blamed for being hopeless. Qin Weibai's appearance completely matched the most perfect perfection in Li Tianlan's heart. Her figure, appearance, temperament, speech, behavior, and every expression and movement were the most beautiful scenery in Li Tianlan's heart. Thinking of Qin Weibai, Li Tianlan's heart suddenly became calm. He looked at Wang Yuetong and shook his head slightly. He said calmly, "I didn't mean that." "Who knows what you're thinking?" Wang Yuetong giggled and put Yu Qingyan's body on her shoulder. Then she reached out to Li Tianlan with the other hand and said, "This girl is unconscious. I can't let you take advantage of her. You hold my hand. If I can't hold it later, remember to help me." Li Beidian whistled and cackled on Ning Qianqing's back. But when Wang Yuetong glanced at him, he immediately fell silent. Li Tianlan did not think much and held Wang Yuetong's small hand in his. He felt as if he was holding a piece of the best mutton fat, warm jade, warm and smooth. Wang Yuetong's face turned slightly red, but her grip on Li Tianlan's hand tightened slightly. In an instant, Li Tianlan only felt that he was surrounded by a warm feeling. The coldness in his body caused by the forced promotion to the ice-condensing realm also dissipated a lot. He seemed to be relaxed. Li Tianlan was stunned. He turned to look at Wang Yuetong and happened to meet her clear eyes. He could clearly see his own reflection in her eyes. Presumably, she felt the same way. Wang Yuetong's small hand tightened again. She blinked and then began to go into the water with Yu Qingyan on her back. Li Tianlan understood that the siren of Wang was not tired at all. She clearly sensed that his internal injury was about to break out, so she chose to help him. He wanted to say thank you, but he swallowed the words when they were on the tip of his tongue. But he still felt a little amazed when he felt the warmth in the air around him. Wang Yuetong's realm at this time was not only at the peak of the ice-condensing realm, but also half a step into the fire-flaming realm. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to help him to this extent. The five of them waded through the water. Wang Yuetong stepped on the stones under her feet as if she were walking on flat ground, without any discomfort. Li Tianlan was also calm and collected. However, as they walked further and further away, Ning Qianqing, who was carrying Li Beidian on his back, began to show signs of being unable to support himself. His legs trembled slightly with every step, but he continued to carry Li Beidian steadily and did not complain at all. 50 meters. 150 meters. 230 meters. The other shore was already close at hand. When Ning Qianqing once again lifted his trembling legs and took a step forward, his feet were already dripping with blood. The dark red blood permeated the water and temporarily blocked the situation at the bottom of the water. Ning Qianqing was not paying attention and was directly tripped by a slightly larger stone. With a muffled groan, he staggered toward the water surface and knelt down. Once Ning Qianqing knelt down with such a sharp stone and Li Beidian's weight, he would have to rest for a few months at best. From then on, he would be left behind in the Sky Academy. In an instant, Li Tianlan suddenly took a step back and suddenly reached out. The moment he grabbed Ning Qianqing's arm, the water within a radius of about 3 to 5 meters suddenly stilled with him as the center. The flowing water turned into ice. The moment Ning Qianqing's fallen knees touched the layer of ice, the ice had already broken. But Ning Qianqing, who had found a fragile point of support, stood up again at the same time. Don't let go. Li Tianlan held Wang Yuetong with one hand and Ning Qianqing with the other. His face was as white as paper, but his tone was still calm like a rock and a glacier. We're almost there, let's go together. Ning Qianqing, who was still in shock, took a deep look at Li Tianlan. He did not say thank you, but carried Li Beidian with one hand and slowly moved forward. Li Beidian looked at Li Tianlan and suddenly said, Tianlan, can you bear it? I'm fine. Li Tianlan said indifferently. His military boots had long been pierced by the stones at the bottom of the water. Almost every time he took a step, blood would gush out of the soles of his feet and flow with the water to an unknown place. But his steps were extremely steady, without the slightest hint of reluctance. Li Beidian could not find any other words to describe his feelings other than to be convinced by such willpower. He glanced at Wang Yuetong again. Compared with them, the little princess of the Wang family was like heaven and earth. Li Beidian estimated that if it were not for them, the little princess would have jumped over the pool. Others walked with difficulty, but she walked casually with a person on her back. Not to mention blood, there was not even a scratch on her skin. It's good to be a privileged person. Li Beidian sighed with emotion, his face full of envy. Don't you know that feet are a girl's second face? If I walk like you, my feet will be in great pain when I go back. If my future boyfriend is a foot fetish, won't I be despised? Wang Yuetong's eyes moved and her smile was gentle. How did you know the contents of the maneuver in advance? Li Beidian could not help but ask. I don't know. Wang Yuetong shook her head and said, but the headmaster reminded me in advance to wear thicker shoes, so I put a layer of cold glue in my shoes. This time, not only Li Beidian, but also Ning Qianqing's mouth was twitching. Not to mention whether it was legal for the headmaster, Zhuang Huayang, to give such a reminder to Wang Yuetong. The layer of cold glue was enough to make people completely speechless. The cold glue technology was a new technology secretly developed by the Zhongzhou state military. It was not mature yet, and most people had not even heard of it. Ning Qianqing and Li Beidian were definitely knowledgeable, but they had only heard the name of cold glue. Who knew that Wang Yuetong could use it to make insoles? Damn privileged people. Li Beidian cursed in his heart and shook his head. For a moment, he did not know what to say. 280 meters. They landed. After walking out of the pool and coming back to the relatively flat land, even Li Tianlan felt like he was about to collapse. If it weren't for his extraordinary willpower supporting him, he might not even have the courage to walk into the pool with his injuries. Now that he walked out of the pool again and was about to reach the end, he breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. He only felt that everything in front of him was black, and he was about to fall to the ground at any time. Qianqing, how are you? Li Tianlan asked Ning Qianqing, whose legs were trembling slightly, after taking a deep breath and barely bracing himself to stand firm. I can still hold on. Ning Qianqing forced a smile and said, let's go. We'll talk about it when we reach the finish line. Li Tianlan nodded, turned directly, and walked to the corner ahead. When they were about to turn, an extremely cold and angry roar suddenly sounded from afar. It was hundreds of meters away, but the voice was still clear. Stop. Li Tianlan and the others looked back at the same time. In their sight, at the other end of the pool, two figures in camouflage rushed into the pool without hesitation. The water under their feet splashed up and instantly froze into a layer of ice. They rushed forward for nearly 20 meters before falling into the water. Even though they fell into the water, they sprinted toward the shore at an extremely fast speed, as if they were not affected by the stones at the bottom of the water at all. Because of the distance, Li Tianlan could not see their faces clearly, nor was he in the mood to look at them carefully. He just glanced at them, turned directly, and said without hesitation, let's go. The five turned the corner. 30 meters ahead, the end of the maneuver was in sight. Led by Zhuang Huayang, all the school leaders were present. Behind the leaders were hundreds of school teachers. There was also a pool at the end of the maneuver. On both sides of the pool were two tall screens, which were playing the scenes of the maneuver. Because they were too close, Li Tianlan even saw his own figure in a small grid between the two screens. The entire end of the maneuver was silent. Ning Qiansheng and Li Beidian were the first to notice the strange atmosphere. At first, they did not know what was going on, but when they inadvertently saw Li Tianlan and Wang Yuetong in front of them, their expressions suddenly changed slightly. Tianlan. Ning Qiansheng shouted in a low voice, and there was a rare hint of anxiety in his voice. Let go of me. Li Tianlan suddenly came to his senses and was stunned. Then he realized that he had been holding Wang Yuetong's little hand since they came ashore. And at the end of the maneuver, the focus of everyone's attention, including Zhuang Huayang's, seemed to be on their tightly clasped hands. There were doubts, oddities, killing intent, fear, and thoughtfulness in people's eyes. Li Tianlan frowned slightly. Suddenly, he felt that the little hand in his hand, which was like a mutton-fat warm jade, moved slightly, as if it wanted to break free. Completely out of instinct, Li Tianlan subconsciously held Wang Yuetong's hand tightly and said faintly, "Don't move." At that moment, Li Tianlan could clearly feel the palm in his hand tremble slightly. Then Wang Yuetong silently lowered her head, letting him hold her hand and walk forward. 30 meters. 20 meters. 15 meters. More and more people gathered on their palms. Li Tianlan's expression became calmer and calmer. 10 meters. A dazzling but tiny electric arc suddenly appeared in front of Li Tianlan. The electric arc came so suddenly that even though Li Tianlan had been on guard, he did not have time to react when the electric light appeared. The next second, Li Tianlan felt his hand go numb, and then it became light again. The figures of Wang Yuetong and Yu Qinyan had been carried by an extremely seductive and mature woman to the end of the maneuver 10 meters away. She put Wang Yuetong beside her and smiled softly. Her voice was hoarse, but it was indescribably sexy. The first place, Wang Yuetong. 2 chapters with 11,000 words. Brothers, are updates really slow? Chapter 28. Everything happened so suddenly that there was no way to guard against it. Not to mention Li Tianlan, who was seriously injured. Even in the whole Sky Academy, there were few people who could react to this scene. That kind of extreme speed was even completely beyond people's thinking. It was precisely because Li Tianlan couldn't react that a few people could observe his real expression. Who was the best in this entrance maneuver? Wang Yuetong from the Wang family of Beihai defeated several senior students in seconds. Her performance was really outstanding. Li Beidian from Mount Shu seemed to be doing nothing, but at the exit of the maze, he managed to control the unification of swords with magnificent sword energy. From the forest, Gu Yulan from Kunlun City defeated Su Mai, the number 2 figure of the elite organization, in a few seconds, which was also amazing. But the most outstanding one was undoubtedly Li Tianlan. He forcibly raised his realm at the Qi-controlling realm and killed Lu Xiuwei, who was at the peak of the fire-flaming realm. This kind of terrifying potential made everyone's scalp numb. Such a performance had already made Li Tianlan the well-deserved first place in the hearts of most teachers. Now they were indeed the first team to appear at the finish line, but the original first place was taken by a female student in their team less than 10 meters away from the finish line. What would Li Tianlan do? Zhuang Huayang sat calmly in his seat and glanced at Li Tianlan calmly. Yi Fengqing seemed to casually lower his head and light a cigarette, but out of the corner of his eyes, he kept staring at Li Tianlan. There was obvious mockery in Gu Yunxia's eyes. The mature woman who had just taken Wang Yuetong and Yu Qinyan to the finish line was also staring at Li Tianlan with a playful look. There was a difference of 30 credits between the first and the third, or the third to the 10th. In the Sky Academy, good friends could turn against each other for a credit, so it went without saying that 30 credits meant a huge amount of wealth. Everyone was very interested in how Li Tianlan would perform in the face of these 30 credits. Li Tianlan's performance was very calm, so calm that people felt it was abnormal. He was just in a trance, and then his eyes became calm. Facing Zhuang Huayang, he bowed slightly and said softly, "Hello, headmaster." "Good." Zhuang Huayang narrowed his eyes and said with a smile, "Good performance. It's good that you're okay." At the same time, the mature woman who brought Wang Yuetong to the finish line and Yi Fengqing also narrowed their eyes and looked at each other tacitly. Li Tianlan's behavior was obviously not what they wanted to see. Even if he was extremely disappointed, angry, resentful, or sincerely congratulating Wang Yuetong, they could understand. However, this new student in front of them was too quiet to the point that they had no idea what he was thinking. Such shrewdness was simply unfathomable. If such a person were to grow up, he would definitely not be someone to be trifled with. Li Tianlan continued to move forward, but as soon as he moved, another person blocked his way again. Gu Yunxia. She stood in front of Li Tianlan, expressionless and cold. Li Tianlan stopped, but his expression and eyes did not change at all. His face was not as stiff as a dead man's or as if he had facial paralysis. Instead, he was truly and thoroughly calm and indifferent from the inside out. This kind of mentality was so steady that it made people feel cold in their hearts. "You guys go first." Li Tianlan glanced at Ning Qiansheng and Li Beidian. The reward for the 2nd to 10th place was 50 credits. They were all in the same dormitory, so there was no practical meaning to who went first and who went last except to sound nice. When both of them passed the finish line, Li Tianlan looked at Gu Yunxia in front of him and asked slowly, "Director Gu, what can I do for you? Do you know what you've done?" Gu Yunxia looked at Li Tianlan coldly and asked. Feeling the monstrous anger and killing intent in her words, Li Tianlan answered honestly, "I finished the maneuver." This was definitely an extremely accurate but evasive answer, and it was also very sarcastic. Gu Yunxia flew into a rage. She did not change her expression instantly, but her tone directly became high and cold. "Li Tianlan, watch your attitude. You did finish the maneuver, but it doesn't mean anything. You killed the deputy director of teaching of the Sky Academy during the maneuver. You need to give the school an explanation for this matter." She stared at Li Tianlan coldly and said resentfully, "You have to pay for what you've done." Li Tianlan frowned slightly. This was the first time he showed an unusual expression, but the reason was that he hated the saliva that Gu Yunxia sprayed on his face. He quietly took a small step to the left and said lightly, "Director Gu, did you see me kill Lu Xiaowei with your own eyes? Do you have any evidence?" Gu Yunxia was slightly stunned. In fact, during the fight between Li Tianlan and Lu Xiaowei, there was always a layer of dense leaves. What's more, there was a thin layer of ice above the leaves. Under the refraction of light from the ice, there was only a large piece of leaves on the monitor screen. No one could see the scene of Li Tianlan killing Lu Xiaowei with his own hands. But the forest was no longer within the scope of the maneuver, and there were only 2 of them there. If Li Tianlan did not kill Lu Xiaowei, did he commit suicide? Gu Yunxia gritted her teeth. She was so angry that she laughed and said, "How dare you quibble?" "Quibble?" Li Tianlan's eyes also became cold. "I don't need it, because Lu Xiaowei deserves to die." This sentence could be said to be a real show of his sharpness. Once the hidden sharpness under Li Tianlan's calm appearance broke out, even Gu Yunxia could not bear it, and her face turned livid with anger. Tianlan is right, Lu Xiaowei deserves to die. Beside Wang Yuetong, the mature woman, who was extremely sexy in both appearance and temperament, smiled gently. She looked at Gu Yunxia with eyes as cold as a knife. "Director Gu, we have just discussed about Lu Xiaowei. What's the point of saying this now?" "Oh, I remember, I just heard someone crossing the river. Now it's almost time to land. Is that Director Gu's descendant? Are you buying time for them? Why bother? The 5th and 6th place? What's the practical use of it, except that it sounds better?" "You!" Gu Yunxia, who was seen through, suddenly turned around and felt so aggrieved that she almost vomited blood. This year, she became the director of teaching of the Sky Academy. She was originally full of ambition, but now everything was not going well. She felt so uncomfortable that she wanted to kill someone. In fact, there was no difference between the 5th and the 6th place, but the person who came later represented the face of Kunlun City. It was naturally good to be one of the first places, but she could not say this kind of idea on such an occasion. Don't slander me, let me tell you, so what if I'm slandering you? The mature woman gently raised her rosy and delicate lips, and her eyes became sharper. If I'm wrong, then you'd better get out of my way. Director Yi just said that Li Tianlan didn't do anything wrong. If you dare to touch him, you'll have to get through him first. Now I'm telling you, I'll give you 3 seconds. If you don't get out of my way, then you have to go through me first. Gu Yunxia's face was as ugly as the bottom of a pot. She was embarrassed and resentful, but she did not dare to say anything. Although the woman in front of her was not a director or deputy director, she was also a senior member of the academy. In the next 3 years, she was responsible for teaching the camouflage and lurking courses of the best students in this batch. It could be said that she was the leader of this course group. But what gave Gu Yunxia the most headache was her strength. Gu Yunxia was confident that she could still fight Yi Fengcheng. Even if she could not win, at least she would not lose. But if she fought with this woman, it was not a matter of winning or losing, but a matter of life and death. The Wang family of Beihai, code-named the Enchantress. One of the core experts of the Wang family of Beihai. Nowadays, the Enchantress could be said to be the real second expert in the entire Sky Academy. And as Zhuang Huayang's state continued to decline, it was also a question of how long he could suppress the Enchantress. The Enchantress was a senior member of the Sky Academy in the last session. She also taught camouflage and lurking courses, but in the last year, she also served as the leader of the assassination course group. The leader of the assassination course group had always been a position that only the real experts and the top assassins could hold. The fact that the Enchantress could hold this position was enough to show how terrifying she was. So let alone 3 seconds, Gu Yunxia only hesitated for a second and directly stepped aside. Although it was very embarrassing, it was nothing compared to the consequences of not giving way. Li Tianlan walked past the finish line smoothly. Li Tianlan successfully crossed the finish line, reported his name, got the credit reward, and completed the first maneuver of freshman with the result of 5th place. He came to the Enchantress, bowed slightly, and said softly, "Thank you, teacher. I'm the Enchantress." The Enchantress, who was full of a kind of mature charm, smiled and waved her hand. "Don't be so polite. You are Yuedong's friend. From now on, you can call me 6th sister like her." Alas, in fact, with my age, Yuetong should call me 6th aunt. But calling me sister makes me look younger, don't you think? Teacher is young, so it's natural to call you 6th sister, Li Tianlan said seriously. Li Tianlan said seriously, his expression as serious as if he was giving a government report. The Enchantress beamed with delight, nodded repeatedly and said, "You are good at talking. Old Yi can't do that. He always says that I am the same age as him, and no matter how many times I beat him, he won't change." Not far away, Yi Fengcheng's face turned red. He gritted his teeth and turned his head, pretending not to hear anything. Li Tianlan didn't know who old Yi was, so he didn't speak. He quietly waited for the students after the 5th place. In less than 10 seconds, another 2 figures appeared in his sight. They were a man and a woman, both of whom looked very young. The girl, who was a little more than 1.6 meters tall but had an unusually hot figure, walked in front with steady steps. She wore a silver mask that covered most of her face, so her appearance couldn't be seen. But her delicate red lips were tightly pursed, giving people an impression of inner firmness. The boy who appeared with her walked beside her. He was more than 2 meters tall and walked beside the girl, indescribably burly and domineering. The boy looked very rough, and his eyes were even fiercer. The only thing Li Tianlan could feel at first sight of him was strength, enough strength. Gu Yunxia didn't wait for him to completely pass the finish line and said eagerly, "The 6th place, Gu Yulan. The 7th place, Su Yunzong. They are all from Kunlun City." Wang Yuetong suddenly appeared beside Li Tianlan and explained softly but seriously, before Gu Yunxia came to the Sky Academy, she was one of the elders of Kunlun City. She is from the same branch as Gu Yulan and Su Yunzong. Li Tianlan nodded. He did have a kind of instinctive hostility to Kunlun City. He wanted to ask about the specific situation of the Empire's Special Warfare Center, but he also knew that it was not the right time. After Gu Yulan and Su Yunzong, Li Tianlan waited for nearly half an hour before the 8th place staggered to the finish line. In less than 20 minutes, more and more students finished the maneuver, and soon they were all ranked after the 20th place. After that, they waited for more than 10 minutes. But this time, Li Tianlan noticed. The freshmen who had completed the maneuver had lost their own credits. This meant that although they had become Zhuanghuayang students, their credits had become negative from now on. Then it was the elite organization that had just separated from Li Tianlan. With Fan Haoyu in the lead, the group walked towards the finish line in a grandiose manner. Li Tianlan counted 9 people in total. He was already in the 45th place. There were still 4 places left. Li Tianlan counted in silence. At the same time, he looked at the others without batting an eyelid. Among these people, some would become his friends or even brothers in the next 3 years or even longer. Some would become his enemies, such as Su Yunzong, who was still glaring at him coldly from time to time. The 47th, 48th, and 49th place soon appeared. For Li Tianlan, he was also an acquaintance. They were the 3 leaders of the Flames of War. Lu Dongyu and Tan Qinhua carried the seriously injured Lu Dongchao and barely managed to catch the last bus. Out of more than a dozen people in the Flames of War, only 3 people were left. The others had been completely annihilated. It could be seen that Fan Haoyu was extremely excited. He tried his best to hold back his laughter, but his fat face turned red, which looked extremely funny. While waiting for the last place to appear, the enchantress, who stood near Wang Yuetong, became obviously a little anxious. She frowned until the 50th place appeared and then slightly relaxed. A woman of about 25 or 26 years old appeared in everyone's sight. She was a very standard beauty. She had a plump and exquisite figure, and her facial features were just right. She was supposed to be a very charming woman, but at this time, her face was pale, and there were countless holes in her camouflage uniform, revealing a large area of snow-white skin. She walked laboriously, and with every step she took, her body swayed as if she would fall at any time. Li Tianlan noticed the weapons in her hands at the first moment. They were 2 extremely exquisite double sabers. Double sabers? Li Tianlan's eyes slightly narrowed, and he glanced at Wang Yuetong. Wang Yuetong's expression was also a little cold. Do you have a grudge against each other? Noticing Wang Yuetong's expression, the enchantress slightly raised her eyebrows and asked. It was she who brought people to attack us just now. Didn't you see it, 6th sister? Wang Yuetong took a deep breath. Her plump chest rose and fell slightly, and the scenery was beautiful. I didn't notice. We have too many scenes to pay attention to. I may have been watching others' performance at that time. With your strength, facing these students, I'm not worried. The enchantress shook her head, looked at the woman who was swaying toward the finish line with the double sabers in her hands, and said softly, her name is Du Hanin, my student, and also a very poor woman. Yuetong, for my 6th sister's sake, let it go, okay? Wang Yuetong wrinkled her nose and snorted. She didn't hurt me. It was me. Li Badian smiled bitterly. Before the enchantress could speak, he said directly, forget it. Anyway, it's nothing. I was just too careless at that time. The enchantress nodded and said no more. When Du Hanin, who ranked 50th, passed the finish line, Zhuang Huayang also stood up in time. Very good. He coughed softly, looked at his watch, and said with a smile, the time taken for the top 50 to finish the maneuver is not much different from what I expected, and even slightly exceeded my expectations. Before the next maneuver, you will all be my students. I will treat you equally and do my best to help you improve your strength. He waved his hand casually, pointed to the school bus not far away, and continued, let's cut the crap. The top 50, get on the number 1 bus. We won't wait for the others. Everyone moved at the same time, walking toward the number 1 bus. Li Tianlan was just about to turn around when a low roar full of suppressed hatred and malice suddenly sounded behind him. Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan stopped, turned around, and looked at Lu Dongchao, who was carried by Lu Dongyu and Tan Qinghua, walking toward him. Not only him, but Wang Yuetong, Li Beidian, Ning Qiansheng, and even some teachers nearby, including Gu Yunxia and Zhuang Huayang, all turned around and watched the scene in front of them. Although no one saw the battle between Li Tianlan and Lu Xiuwei, it was the most exciting scene in the maneuver. Now Lu Xiuwei was killed. As Lu Xiuwei's nephew, what would Lu Dongchao say? What's the matter? Li Tianlan looked at Lu Dongchao, who stopped in front of him, and said in an indifferent tone. You destroyed my flames of war, ruined my future, humiliated my family, and killed my second uncle. Lu Dongchao laughed miserably as he spoke word by word, and his voice carried an irrepressible ruthlessness and desolation. I'll remember everything that happened today. Similarly, I'll make you remember everything that happened today. Believe me, you'll regret everything you've done today for the rest of your life. I swear. You are no match for me. Li Tianlan's tone became more and more indifferent. But I have my family. Like a madman, Lu Dongchao smiled brightly and said, You also have your family, don't you? Don't worry, it will be gone soon. I will use all my power to retaliate. Your family, your relatives, your friends, and you, no one will have an easy time. I can make your life worse than death. I can do it. Just wait and see. Suddenly, Li Tianlan's eyes became as deep as the sea. You said these. He looked at Lu Dongchao and asked slowly, Aren't you afraid that I will kill you now? Kill me? Lu Dongchao laughed wildly and even his tears came out. The maneuver is not over yet. You want to kill me in front of so many people? Do you dare? Bastard. F*CKU, do you dare? Kill me, come and kill me. Come and kill me, I'm waiting. Li Tianlan's pupils abruptly turned blood red. Li Tianlan. Wang Yuetong suddenly screamed, If you dare to kill Senior Dongchao here, I will be the first to kill you. She screamed and suddenly made a move. Under the wildly changing expressions of Ning Qiansheng and Li Beidian, she pushed Li Tianlan's back with her palm. Li Tianlan just wanted to fight back, but he found that the force Wang Yuetong pushed on his back was extremely gentle and not aggressive at all. Instead, he could use this force to get closer to Lu Dongchao. What a smart girl, what an enchanting woman. Li Tianlan's thoughts flashed violently. Under Wang Yuetong's palm, he deliberately spat out a mouthful of blood. His whole body seemed to lose control and fell toward Lu Dongchao. Before Lu Dongyu and Tan Qinghua could react to this strange scene, Li Tianlan's body had already smashed into Lu Dongchao. Coincidentally, his palm was pressed against Lu Dongchao's heart, and he shook it slightly. Lu Dongchao, who was laughing wildly, suddenly shook his body. He stared at Li Tianlan with his eyes wide open in horror. In his line of sight was a calm face filled with endless madness. He seemed to open his mouth and softly say, Idiot. Lu Dongchao, whose heart was almost crushed, blacked out and died on the spot. Bastard. Gu Yunxia, who was a little further away, howled and suddenly jumped up. An amazing lightning gathered in her hand and stabbed Li Tianlan. At the same time, lightning flashed on Li Tianlan's body. Lightning bolts spread out in a frenzy. Almost in the blink of an eye, countless lightning had wrapped Li Tianlan's body. The lightning gathered in front of Li Tianlan and hit Gu Yunxia in the air. The grand and dense lightning hit Gu Yunxia's body in an instant. The dignified director of the teaching office of the Sky Academy did not even hold on for 2 seconds. She was hit by the lightning and flew out, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Most people were stunned and looked at everything in front of them in a daze. The enchantress looked solemn. She looked at the lightning in front of Li Tianlan and then at Gu Yunxia, who fell on the ground with disheveled hair, and lowered her eyelids. Headmaster Zhuang Huayang, who had personally protected Li Tianlan, walked through the crowd to Gu Yunxia and said coldly, "You have no rules at all, Director Gu. Do you think I can't control you after I die?" Headmaster, Wang Yuetong and Li Tianlan are acting. Don't tell me you can't see it. Gu Yunxia roared hysterically. Zhuang Huayang snorted, turned around, and glanced at Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan was lying on Lu Dongchao's body, completely unconscious. Wang Yuetong stood where she was with a blank expression. Flawless. What a smart girl. Zhuang Huayang praised her in his heart, and then shook his head subconsciously. Compared with Wang Yuetong's cleverness and quick-wittedness, her tacit understanding with Li Tianlan seemed to be the rarest. Chapter 29. When Li Tianlan woke up, it was already afternoon. He did not show up in his dormitory, but in the hospital of the Sky Academy. A single room, clean and elegant light blue walls, a soft bed, and dry and soft bedding. Fresh flowers and a plate of washed fruits were placed on the cabinet next to the bed. Right in front of him was a 55-inch LCD TV. Li Tianlan opened his eyes, feeling a little dazed and dreamy. His thoughts jumped from the gloomy and humid border to Huading, and then to the entrance maneuver of the Sky Academy. It took him a full half a minute to come back to his senses. He moved his body and sat up straight against the headboard. Almost instinctively, he took out his mobile phone and turned it on. One of the more satisfactory things about the Sky Academy was that students were not prohibited from talking to the outside world on weekdays. Students were only required to turn off their mobile phones during some sensitive courses or maneuvers. After all, a considerable number of students here were different from Li Tianlan, Li Beidian, and others. They held official positions. For example, Ning Qianqing was the deputy battalion commander of the Thunderbolt Battalion of the Border Praetorian Corps of Zhongzhou State. He came to the Sky Academy for further study. Once the Thunderbolt Battalion took action and needed his help, he had to go back and report as soon as possible. There were many people like Ning Qianqing who came to the Sky Academy with official identities. Some of them had more sensitive positions than Ning Qianqing. No matter where they were, they had to make sure that others could find them as soon as possible. Therefore, mobile phones naturally became a necessity for every student in the Sky Academy. Li Tianlan subconsciously turned on his mobile phone. At first, he did not know what he was going to do, but when he saw the picture on the screen, he suddenly understood. On the screen, Li Tianlan's silly expression was so ugly that he could not bear to look at it. Qin Weibai, who was leaning against him, was smiling beautifully. Li Tianlan's eyes stayed on their interlocked fingers for a moment. His heart was filled with mixed feelings. There was joy, excitement, uneasiness, longing, and an almost illusory sense of loss and lack of confidence. He pursed his lips, opened the WeChat app on his mobile phone, and clicked on the dialog box with Qin Weibai. In the dialog box, Qin Weibai sent him another message. I found a very authentic Western restaurant in Bruxelles. The food is amazing. I really should come and try it with you. During the few days he was apart from Qin Weibai, Li Tianlan received messages from Qin Weibai every day. They were all trivial things about delicious food and beautiful scenery. Behind each message, there was a sigh that said they should visit together. Li Tianlan didn't know how to respond at all, so he never responded. The whole dialog box was filled with messages from Qin Weibai, one a day, neatly arranged. Li Tianlan hesitated for a moment. He typed on the keyboard awkwardly and replied, I've completed the entrance maneuver. A few seconds later, Qin Weibai's reply came directly, giving him the illusion that she was waiting for his reply at any time. This time, instead of typing, Qin Weibai replied with a voice message. Li Tianlan clicked on it. Qin Weibai's cold and somewhat ethereal voice came from the phone. Tianlan, are you hurt? I'm fine. Li Tianlan typed seriously. He was still not used to speaking with a voice message, especially when chatting with Qin Weibai. Only those who had experienced the sweetness of being careful could understand it. A little injury. Pay attention to rest. Don't risk your life before you recover. Qin Weibai's voice grew softer and softer. She paused for a moment, then sent another voice message. Come home when you have time. I left some information for you at home. Take a look. It should be useful to you. Li Tianlan was slightly stunned. Home? Go back to the border now? While he was still thinking, Qin Weibai said again, the key is with old you. Li Tianlan instantly understood that the home Qin Weibai mentioned belonged to Qin Weibai, the villa where he stayed for one night. Li Tianlan became confused again. He even forgot to reply to Qin Weibai's message. He had a very strange feeling in his heart. He wanted to control himself and not let his imagination run wild, but he couldn't. Indulge in wishful thinking? That was not entirely true. Li Tianlan could feel Qin Weibai's feelings. They were emanating from her every expression and movement. But he didn't know what these feelings meant and what they represented. He had his own guesses, but every time he thought about it, he felt that he was overthinking. Subconsciously, he didn't think that he was qualified to have anything with Qin Weibai now. How could a nobody who had nothing and had just started on the martial arts path make a woman like Qin Weibai fall in love with him? In terms of background, the Li family was extremely glorious 20 years ago. But now Li Tianlan's background could only bring more danger to him and the people around him. Li Tianlan didn't belittle himself, but he wouldn't be arrogant either. In general, perhaps his only redeeming quality was his potential. On the path of martial arts, he could be said to be a genius and a future expert of the invincible realm. But the other meaning of the words, future expert of the invincible realm, was that he was nothing now. In this way, no matter what, Qin Weibai didn't seem to have a reason to fall in love with him. Her contact information was given by his grandfather. So Li Tianlan had always thought that Qin Weibai's care for him came from her respect for his grandfather. Maybe it had something to do with his father back then. But he was never willing to think about it carefully. Time passed slowly. Li Tianlan didn't reply to Qin Weibai's message in the end. Instead, he put his phone aside and was lost in thought. Ning Qianqing pushed the door open and walked in with a pot of water in his hand. Seeing Li Tianlan in a daze, he was slightly startled and then smiled. You're awake? How do you feel? I'm fine. Li Tianlan smiled. How's Badian? Still sleeping. He's right next door. I've been running around. The doctor said that you're seriously injured and have to rest for a while. Try not to fight if you can. If this kind of internal injury accumulates over the years, it will become a hidden injury. It is very likely to affect a person's final achievements. Ning Qianqing poured a glass of water and handed it to Li Tianlan. He sat beside him and continued, You were in a daze just now. What were you thinking about? Were you thinking about Lu Dongchao's death? Or Gu Yunxia? Don't worry, the headmaster has helped you deal with these things. At least in the Sky Academy, the headmaster's prestige is enough. Li Tianlan shook his head. Since he dared to do the thing about Lu Dongchao, he wouldn't worry too much afterward. He hesitated for a moment and tried to smile naturally. He asked, Qianqing, do you think a toad can eat swan meat without doing anything? Ning Qianqing was slightly stunned. He gave Li Tianlan a strange look and suddenly scolded with a smile, What kind of toad are you? A toad in the chi-controlling realm who can kill a toad at the peak of the fire-flaming realm with wind and thunder veins? If you're a toad, damn it, what are we? I didn't mean that. Li Tianlan shook his head with a wry smile. I meant relative. Compared to that swan, what I have is really nothing. You mean Wang Yuetong? Ning Qianqing hesitated for a moment. What you have now is really nothing compared to her. But Tianlan, listen to me. You and Wang Yuetong should leave it to fate. Don't force it. Swan meat is not so delicious. Even if you can eat it, it may not be a good thing for you. Li Tianlan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was talking about Qin Weibai, but it seemed reasonable for Ning Qianqing to talk about Wang Yuetong. But the problem was that he really didn't have any feelings for Wang Yuetong. But he was a little curious about the mysterious Wang family of Beihai that he had never heard of but everyone was very afraid of. He didn't correct Ning Qianqing at the moment and just followed his words. What is Wang Yuetong's background? Princess Yuetong, the demoness of the Wang family. Ning Qianqing said in a low voice, his expression serious and solemn. Li Tianlan found the words familiar. After thinking for a while, he suddenly remembered what Li Beidian said to him in the maze. It was exactly the same words. He felt a headache and said helplessly, I mean, what is the background of the Wang family of Beihai? You don't know the Wang family of Beihai? Ning Qianqing's expression was even weirder. As a member of the Special Warfare System, he didn't know the Wang family of Beihai. It was just like the people of Zhongzhou State didn't know who the president of Zhongzhou State was. I don't know. Li Tianlan felt something was wrong. The Wang family of Beihai seemed to be extraordinarily famous. But he had never heard his grandfather talk about it before. He subconsciously grasped the quilt on his body, expressionless. If the Wang family of Beihai was really so famous, then it could only mean that his grandfather deliberately hid it. What did it mean? It meant that the Wang family of Beihai was probably related to his father's treason case, just like the current Kunlun city. In less than half a month after coming to Huading, Li Tianlan finally saw the fog in front of him. And behind the layers of fog was the truth that had been hidden for many years. This was not bad news for him. At least it was much better than not seeing the fog at all. It's hard for me to answer your question. Ning Qianqing thought about it and really couldn't figure out how to answer such a ridiculous question about the background of the Wang family of Beihai. I'll put it simply. It's a super wealthy family with no shortcomings in all aspects. It's said that it once declined, but that was hundreds of years ago. Who knows if it's true? Zhongzhou State has been founded for nearly 500 years. The Wang family of Beihai has been glorious in Zhongzhou State for nearly 500 years. Their foundation is in Beihai province, but their influence can spread to the entire Zhongzhou State and even the entire dark world. So, do you understand? No. Li Tianlan shook his head. Ning Qianqing's words were too empty, so empty that it was hard to have a clear concept of the Wang family of Beihai. What do you not understand? A sweet and charming voice suddenly sounded at the door. Li Tianlan and Ning Qianqing were shocked at the same time. Almost at the same time, Li Tianlan had already reflexively grabbed the human emperor that had been put aside. Wang Yuetong, who pushed the door open and came in, was also a little surprised. Looking at Li Tianlan, who looked like he was facing a formidable enemy, she blinked her eyes and said, Did I come at the wrong time? No. Li Tianlan also felt that his reaction was a little too much. He awkwardly put the weapon aside and asked, Junior Sister Yuetong, why are you here? I came to see you. Wang Yuetong smiled and squinted her eyes. The dimples at the corner of her mouth were very attractive. She walked into the ward and handed 2 small boxes to Li Tianlan. She said, Senior brother, I brought you something that will be useful to you. What is it? Li Tianlan took it with a smile, only to find that the 2 palm-sized boxes were made of sandalwood. Not to mention the contents inside, the 2 small boxes were worth a lot of money. He glanced at Wang Yuetong in confusion and opened both boxes, only to find that there was a glassware in each box. Inside the glassware, 2 kinds of red liquid were slightly stirring, one light red, the other dark red. After you passed out, the headmaster announced that the credit system was officially launched. This bottle of light red is called Heal. I exchanged it with credits in the warehouse. The dark red one is called Life Prolonging. It's a genetic potion developed by our family. Wang Yuetong sat next to Li Tianlan and looked at him seriously. She said, Senior brother Tianlan, I know you don't trust me enough, but I'm willing to try to trust you. I'm willing to share my good things with someone I can trust. If you take these 2 bottles of potion together, your injury will immediately stabilize and you will recover in a week. You can't refuse me. If you can't figure it out, just take it as my investment in your potential, although that's not my original intention. Heal potion. Li Tianlan knew this kind of thing. It was a special potion specially provided by Zhongzhou State for the Sky Academy and the Deep Sea Academy. It didn't improve combat effectiveness, but it could quickly stabilize and heal injuries. In the student code of conduct, it cost 60 credits to exchange for a bottle of heal potion, and the price was clearly stated. Only the strongest group of people in the academy would exchange for a bottle of this kind of advanced thing when they went out for field missions. Some people would even be reluctant to give it up. It was a life-saving thing, and no one would be so extravagant as to use it to heal injuries caused by maneuvers. As for life-prolonging, just by looking at Ning Qianqing's wonderful face, he knew that the value of this medicine was absolutely not lower than that of heal. Li Tianlan held the two small boxes in his hands and was silent for a few seconds. Then he raised his head and looked at Wang Yuetong calmly. Thank you. He didn't refuse. Li Tianlan had always been very clear about what kind of attitude he should use to which person. This thank you was not only because of the two precious genetic potions, but also because of Wang Yuetong's marvelous assistance at the end of the maneuver. Without her help, Lu Dongchao would not have a good end even if he died. Wang Yuetong's pretty face blushed. She only felt that his calm eyes were unprecedentedly clear and gentle. She casually turned her head and saw the human emperor beside Li Tianlan. Her eyes slightly brightened, and she grabbed the human emperor. As soon as the human emperor was in her hand, Wang Yuetong's hands suddenly sank. She exerted a little force and grabbed the human emperor again. She smiled and said, I'm afraid it weighs more than 50 kilograms, about the same weight as the heavy sword my brother used. Senior brother Tianlan, can this weapon change shape? What's its name? It has several different forms. Li Tianlan nodded. It's called Human Emperor. Puff. Beside Wang Yuetong, Ning Qianqing had just taken a sip of water. When he heard the word Human Emperor, he directly spat out all the water, wetting a large area of Li Tianlan's hospital bed. Chapter 30. Qin Ke once said that about 15 years ago, there was a superpower called Night Spirit in the Dark World that traveled east to Huaxia for a top-secret military blueprint. One of the two dominators of Night Spirit, Heaven Heart, an invincible realm expert, took action in person. Finally, he was shot dead by a patriarch of a top wealthy family in Zhongzhou State from 20,000 meters away. That gun was called the Human Emperor. It was the first of the 12 murderous weapons in the Dark World. Now, listening to Wang Yuetong, Li Tianlan finally knew that the legendary Human Emperor was a murderous weapon belonging to the Wang family of Beihai. This sentence was much clearer than the large number of concepts that Ning Qianqing had just instilled in him. Invincible realm experts were the peak combat capability in the Dark World today. The birth and death of an invincible realm expert in any country could affect the pattern of the entire Dark World. Li Tianlan was not sure if there were any invincible realm experts in the Wang family of Beihai. But the blow of the Human Emperor 15 years ago was enough to show that they at least had the power and means to kill an invincible realm expert. Li Tianlan naturally knew the status of such a wealthy family in Zhongzhou State and in the Dark World. It's just a coincidence. My gun is a cold weapon. It can't be compared with the famous gun in your family. Li Tianlan leaned against the headboard and said with a smile, playing with the two sandalwood boxes in his hands. Senior brother, take the medicine first. It has been activated. If you don't take it in a few hours, it won't work. Wang Yuetong put the Human Emperor back in its original place and sat in front of Li Tianlan with a smile. You take it first. I have something to tell you. You've taken it? Li Tianlan felt it was a pity. He didn't have the support of a wealthy family like the Wang family of Beihai. He had planned to keep one of the two bottles of medicine. Maybe it could save his life someday. Hearing that it would be useless if he didn't take it in a few hours, he suddenly felt a headache. Take it. These two medicines complement each other. If you like, I have some life-prolonging medicine. I'll give it to you another day. There's no healing medicine. I don't have enough credits. Wang Yuetong smiled softly. It was hard for her to define her feelings for Li Tianlan. But it was certainly not love. But it was undeniable that in Wang Yuetong's eyes, Li Tianlan was indeed special and even mysterious. She couldn't help but want to get closer to him. Even if nothing happened in the end, with Li Tianlan's potential, the Wang family of Beihai wouldn't care about this little investment. It was always good to have a good relationship. Li Tianlan hesitated for a moment, nodded, and drank the liquid in the two containers together. Ning Qiansheng, who was an old acquaintance of Wang Yuetong but did not seem to be close to her, finally couldn't help coughing and said awkwardly, "Well, Yuetong, do you have a lot of life-prolonging potions?" "Ning Cheng, I have medicine. Prolonging medicine, later, life-prolonging it." He was not an ignorant bumpkin like Li Tianlan. The life-prolonging medicine was far more precious than the healing medicine. It did have the effect of quickly stabilizing injuries. But the main function of life-prolonging medicine was to balance all aspects of the user's physical state. Simply put, it could coordinate the strength, speed, and explosive force of the warrior's body to make the attack more effective. At the same time, it could greatly reduce the burden on the user's body. The effect could last for up to 6 months. Even in the Wang family of Beihai, it was a very advanced thing. Life-prolonging medicine was a special product of the Wang family of Beihai. It was the 6th generation since it was first developed. So far, it was in high demand on the black market. The Wang family of Beihai only traded 100 or 200 bottles with the Zhongzhou state government every year. It was no exaggeration to say that except for young core members of the Wang family of Beihai like Wang Yuetong, almost all experts below the thundershocking realm in the entire Zhongzhou state were not qualified to use life-prolonging medicine. Now, Wang Yuetong gave such a high-end thing to Li Tianlan as an ordinary healing medicine. While Ning Qiansheng lamented that it was a waste of God's gift, he also had the illusion that Wang Yuetong had brought a lot of life-prolonging medicine to the Sky Academy. So he simply put down his pride and tentatively made this request. If Wang Yuetong was willing to trade, even if it was just 3 or 5 bottles, as long as she brought it back to the border Praetorian Corps, it would make the experts in the Corps safer when hunting abroad. Wang Yuetong glanced at Ning Qiansheng with a faint smile on her lips. Ning Qiansheng's face was a little red, but he looked at Wang Yuetong with undisguised expectation and desire. "Sure, I can make the decision if it's within 20 bottles of life-prolonging medicine." She looked at Ning Qiansheng's surprised expression and gently raised her red lips. She said slowly, "I want 10 standard mad shots. If your marshal agrees, I'm willing to give you 20 bottles of life-prolonging medicine." The corner of Ning Qiansheng's mouth twitched and he was speechless for a moment. Just as life-prolonging medicine was the private property of the Wang family of Beihai, mad shot was also the private property of their marshal, or rather, the private property of the entire Dongqing clan. The Dongqing clan was also a top wealthy family in the Zhongzhou state. It was known as a military giant and had a supreme status in the Zhongyuan province. Mad shot was the new research result of the Dongqing clan in recent years. It could also be said to be the proudest work of the Dongqing clan. Mad shot was not a medicine, but a gun. To be exact, it was an energy gun that could pose a great threat to an expert in the fire-flaming realm and a certain threat to an expert in the thunder-shocking realm. Mad shot had a fast shooting speed and a strong energy storage capacity. Even an expert in the fire-flaming realm would be seriously injured after taking one shot. Although such a powerful energy gun was far inferior to the 12 murderous weapons in the Dark World, it was still a target coveted by all the major forces. Because mad shot could be mass-produced. Although each mad shot was expensive, as long as it could be mass-produced, money was nothing. At present, all the mad shots produced by the Dongqing clan had been provided to the Border Control Corps. In 3 years, there were about 60 mad shots in the hands of the real sharpshooters of the Border Control Corps, and they were secretly protected by experts. If 60 mad shots were fired at the same time, any expert under the invincible realm would feel numb. Now Wang Yuetong wanted to exchange 20 bottles of life-prolonging medicine for 10 mad shots. She was asking for too much. That's impossible. Ning Qianqing replied without hesitation. Not to mention whether such a deal was worth it. Even if it was worth it, the price of 10 mad shots was already beyond his control. See, mad shot is a treasure in your eyes, and life prolonging is also a treasure in our eyes. There's nothing to talk about. Wang Yuetong chuckled and turned to look at Li Tianlan. Senior brother Tianlan, how do you feel? Hot. Li Tianlan said, but very comfortable. This was the first time in his life that he had taken such a high-tech genetic potion. In less than a minute after taking the potion, he felt a warm feeling, and it seemed that the pain in his body was quickly fading. This is a normal reaction, senior brother. If there are no accidents, you can be discharged tomorrow. Your injury should be healed before the class officially starts. Let's go out and play tomorrow, okay? It's time to go out. Before Li Tianlan could speak, an old voice suddenly sounded from the door. The headmaster of the Sky Academy, Zhuang Huayang, stood at the door of the ward. He squinted and smiled gently. I saw that you didn't close the door, so I came in directly. Do you mind? Hello, headmaster. Li Tianlan and the other two straightened up at the same time and said in unison. Okay. Zhuang Huayang nodded and walked in slowly. From this posture, no one could associate him with the absolute expert who defeated Gu Yunxia with one move a few hours ago. He carefully looked at Li Tianlan's face, and his eyes stopped on the two sandalwood boxes next to Li Tianlan. He smiled and said, it seems that there is no problem. This girl gave you a lot of private goods from the Wang family of Beihai? It's just a bottle of life prolonging. Headmaster, your words are too harsh. Wang Yuetong curled her lips discontentedly and spoke bluntly. Headmaster, what's the matter? Sitting at the head of the bed, Li Tianlan asked straightforwardly without beating around the bush. From Zhuang Huayang's slightly flickering eyes, he could be sure that Zhuang Huayang's visit this time was definitely not as simple as a headmaster visiting an injured student. There are some things I want to talk to you alone. Zhuang Huayang smiled casually. Wang Yuetong and Ning Qianqing were not fools. Naturally, they understood that the headmaster was driving them away. They immediately got up and said goodbye. However, when Wang Yuetong left, she looked back several times. Obviously, she was very interested in the conversation between the two. This girl is smart, but she's a little too curious. Zhuang Huayang looked at Wang Yuetong who was leaving and said softly with a smile. Li Tianlan did not comment. He just looked at Zhuang Huayang's eyes attentively and waited for him to get to the point. But Zhuang Huayang was silent. He walked slowly to the window and looked at the endless sea outside, as if he was thinking about something. Li Tianlan was not in a hurry. Living at the border and in the maze in the desert of Beijiang had given him a calmness and patience far beyond his age. If Zhuang Huayang insisted on not talking, he could accompany the old headmaster for a day and a night. Tianlan, are you willing to be a vassal of a family or a force? To Li Tianlan's surprise, Zhuang Huayang did not talk about the entrance maneuver and Gu Yunxia. Instead, he talked about a topic that was beyond the scope of a school leader and a student's heart-to-heart talk. Li Tianlan lowered his eyelids slightly and said indifferently, I don't understand what you mean, headmaster. What I mean is very simple. With your potential, once you grow up, it will be absolutely easy for you to become a core figure of a super force. You may get a very high status and a very bright life. You can even achieve some things that you can't do on your own. But you will also lose yourself. You will not have a standpoint. The standpoint of that big force is your standpoint. You will not care about what you want, but how to get the most benefits for that force. Your hatred, your resentment, your love, all have to be weighed in the overall situation. You can't be happy with gratitude or hatred. You can only become a bright and glorious pawn in the hands of others, but without freedom and standpoint. Are you willing to live such a life? Zhuang Huayang turned around and looked at Li Tianlan with bright eyes. His expression was still gentle, but the content of his words was full of a sense of oppression. This time, Li Tianlan was silent for a full 5 minutes before he calmly said, My grandfather once told me that I would rather be a farmer than a vassal. Penetrating insight. Zhuang Huayang nodded with a smile. He thought for a while and continued, if you have a friend who has a very good relationship with you, and the two of you build a very large force together, and it has been passed on smoothly for hundreds of years or even longer, generation after generation of people run this force, but the highest authority has always been in the hands of you and your friend's descendants. Can you understand what I'm saying? I can understand. Li Tianlan's tone was calm, but his heart was turbulent. By now, he could already be sure that Zhuang Huayang did not come to him for a chat at all. Perhaps Zhuang Huayang already knew his identity, and today, it was obvious that he wanted to tell him something. It's good that you can understand. Zhuang Huayang took out a cigarette and lit it. He took a deep breath and continued, for hundreds of years, you and your friend's descendants have been in control of the supreme power of this force. But suddenly one day, something happened to your friend's descendants, and a martial arts force with great influence collapsed just like that. But your descendant also encountered some problems, so he couldn't help you. The final result is clear. Your friend's descendant completely fell into desolation, but your descendant succeeded in controlling the supreme power of this superpower alone. Tianlan, if it were you, would you feel guilty? Maybe. Li Tianlan lowered his head and drank water, hiding all his expressions. His tone was gentle, but there was a trace of indifference. But such guilt can't affect anything at all. Yes, it won't affect anything at all. Zhuang Huayang nodded and echoed meaningfully. He continued, maybe we can put it more simply. We don't need to talk about descendants. Let's talk about you. If you control the supreme power of this big force, and one day, you suddenly find that your once closest and most reliable comrade, but suddenly desolate, has a tendency to rise again, then what will you do? Li Tianlan was silent. Will you do your best to help him restore his former status and share the power in his hands with you? Zhuang Huayang's eyes became sharper and sharper, and the questions he asked became more and more difficult to answer. If it's my friend, I will. Li Tianlan opened his mouth slowly. He had always been calm, but this time his tone became depressed and bitter. But it's your ancestor's friend. This friendship has lasted for hundreds of years and has been passed down from generation to generation. How much of it can be left in your generation? Is it the same as before, or is it simply a need for cooperation? Now the other family has fallen, and you alone control the situation. Under such circumstances, in the face of the rise of another family, what will you choose? Zhuang Huayang asked in an indifferent and even a little leisurely. But the answer behind this question was cold and chilling. Li Tianlan remained silent. He had nothing to say. I'll answer it for you. Zhuang Huayang narrowed his eyes and said with a slightly cold smile, if it were me, I would never want to see the rise of another family, because helping them is tantamount to helping another person share his own power. If I don't help them, if they really become powerful, it is very likely to lead to the division of the force I control now. So not only will I not help them, but I will also do everything possible to stop their development. If I'm ruthless, I will even use my current power to completely crush them and make them disappear completely. Li Tianlan's hand shook slightly, and in his hand, more than half a cup of water suddenly shook a little. So if this once desolate force wants to stand in its former position again, then not to mention their enemies, even their best partners will become their most direct opponents, even their mortal enemies. Zhuang Huayang said coldly. Li Tianlan took a deep breath and poured all the water in the cup down. Then he said, it's a wonderful story. Just a story? Tianlan? What if it's true? Zhuang Huayang looked at Li Tianlan and asked with mocking eyes. Li Tianlan was also looking at Zhuang Huayang, and his eyes were absolutely quiet like stagnant water. How many invincible realm experts are there in Zhongzhou state now? Zhuang Huayang looked at Li Tianlan's eyes and asked. Li Tianlan's eyes flickered slightly, and he asked in reply, not 4? Of course not. Zhuang Huayang laughed out loud and said, to be exact, there should be 5 invincible realm experts in Zhongzhou state now, but one has been forgotten by most people. Chapter 31. Here it came. Finally, it came. From the beginning of the entrance maneuver, Li Tianlan had guessed that Zhuang Huayang knew his identity. Now that he heard Zhuang Huayang directly call out his grandfather's name, he basically had a definite answer in his heart. His heart was beating fiercely, but his expression did not change at all. He was like a rock, cold and indifferent. I'd like to hear the details. He raised his head and calmly looked into Zhuang Huayang's eyes. Zhuang Huayang subconsciously narrowed his eyes and looked at Li Tianlan seriously for a while. Then he suddenly said, "Tianlan, do you know that your current performance may be appreciated, but it's hard for people to like you? You're too quiet, so quiet that no one can see through you. If you already have a foundation, your performance would be good. But now you're just a young man with nothing. A young man that even an old man like me thinks is deep and even unfathomable is a bit too much. You should show your vigor and vitality, at least to let people know what you're thinking, even if what they see is not what you really want to show." Li Tianlan's mouth moved. He sat on the bed and bowed slightly. He said calmly, "Thank you for your advice, headmaster." Zhuang Huayang could not tell whether Li Tianlan had listened to him or not. This young man, he really had a feeling that he could not grasp. Shaking his head, he pulled a chair to sit on the edge of the bed and took out a cigarette again. "Want one?" Li Tianlan nodded and took the cigarette. He knew how to smoke, but he only smoked cheap tobacco at the border, so he was not addicted to it. "This is a luxury in your country, isn't it?" Zhuang Huayang shook the cigarette in his hand and asked with a smile. But in his eyes, Li Tianlan seemed not to have heard it. His expression did not change at all, and he just smoked quietly. The old headmaster laughed at himself. Regardless of whether Li Tianlan listened or not, he went straight to the point. The Li family represented by Li Honghe was not called the Li family before. Different from the Wang family of Beihai, they are a martial arts force with a long history, called Zhuanyuantai of Kunlun. 20 years ago, Zhuanyuantai was truly glorious. Over the past 500 years, from Li Kuangtu's generation, Zhuanyuantai produced 9 generations of invincible realm experts without interruption. Only the Wang family of Beihai could match this kind of glory. And because Zhuanyuantai has been controlled by the Li family in recent generations, the Li family is also known as the war god family of Zhongzhou state. To put it simply, in the past few hundred years, every invincible realm expert from Zhuanyuantai of Kunlun has been the supreme leader of the special warfare system of Zhongzhou state. Their status is similar to that of the current Kunlun city, but their prestige is higher than that of Kunlun city. What do you think? Awesome, right? Li Tianlan was no longer calm this time. The muscles on his face twitched visibly, and he took a deep drag on the cigarette. 20 years ago, the Southeast Group, which was formed by the Wang family of Beihai and Zhuanyuantai of Kunlun, had an overwhelming influence in Zhongzhou state. Southeast Group? Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows in surprise. What is it? You can understand it as a force composed of various forces. Zhuang Huayang explained patiently, these forces include all the forces in politics, economy, military system, special warfare system, academic field, public opinion, and so on. In a word, the Southeast Group is a super force composed of all the powerful families in the southeast of Zhongzhou state. Wuyue Province, Jiangxia Province, Minnan Province, Jianghuai Province, Dongshan Province, Jiangnan Province, and Beihai Province, as well as some powerful departments in the capital Yuzhou, can all be regarded as the sphere of influence of the Southeast Group. Zhuang Huayang took a deep drag on the cigarette. Obviously, he was not calm. Including the place we are in now. The entire Huading, 5 years ago, was also the backyard of the Southeast Group. Li Tianlan was speechless for a long time. Even he could not help but feel a little numb when he heard this. He could not imagine the power of this force. But as soon as he heard the names of the 7 provinces, he could feel what kind of turbulence this force would set off in Zhongzhou state. With the decline of Zhuanyuantai of Kunlun or the Li family, this force had now been completely dominated by the Wang family of Beihai. It was the first time that Li Tianlan knew that his family had been so glorious when he stood side by side with the Wang family of Beihai. But when he heard the news at this time, he was not honored, only bitter. Very strong. Li Tianlan opened his mouth and his voice was very dry. It's more than very strong. 20 years ago, the Southeast Group was in power. If it weren't for that case of treason, the Southeast Group would be even more horrible now. How could there be room for others to live? Zhuang Huayang smoked and said calmly. Looking at Li Tianlan, who was in deep thought, he suddenly asked, "What do you think of your father's treason case?" This sentence was tantamount to directly revealing Li Tianlan's identity. There was no if, and no story. In other words, Zhuang Huayang's words directly involved Li Tianlan in this story. You said it was my father. From my standpoint, what opinion can I have? Will I really think that he committed treason like others? Li Tianlan didn't look surprised at all. He just stared at Zhuang Huayang coldly and asked. Zhuang Huayang smiled slightly and said in a calm tone, I understand that you have resentment, but don't vent it on me. In fact, my old leader and I have been insisting on investigating the truth of that treason case all these years. If it weren't for our insistence, the case would have been completely closed now. What level was Zhuang Huayang's old leader? Li Tianlan still couldn't imagine, but there was no doubt that this was the topic of his talk today. Li Tianlan looked at Zhuang Huayang thoughtfully, narrowed his eyes, and said softly, So what's the background of the headmaster? Or, which group does he come from? Shall we continue to tell the story? Zhuang Huayang didn't answer directly, but looked at Li Tianlan and said with a smile. Li Tianlan nodded and said, Okay. It may be difficult for you to understand how powerful the Southeast Group was 20 years ago. Judging from the situation of Zhongzhou State, whichever group is in power will become extremely powerful during the period of the group's rule. But now, it has been nearly 20 years since the Southeast Group was in power, but it is still one of the most powerful groups in Zhongzhou State. Even if it has left the highest position, even if it has been affected by the treason case, it hasn't been completely defeated. This shows their tenacity and the great talent of the patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai. Zhuang Huayang said slowly, but overall, the strength of the Southeast Group has been weakened in recent years, but now it has completely stabilized. More than 10 years ago, the big boss of the Southeast Group retired, and Zhongzhou State was under the rule of the Prince Group. Judging from the situation at that time, if the Wang family of Beihai and Zhuanyuantai of Kunlun were at their peak, even if the Prince Group came to power, it couldn't escape the fate of being a puppet. Fortunately, Zhuanyuantai was already a thing of the past at that time. A few years passed, and the storm caused by the treason case also came to an end. Zhongzhou State has Kunlun City. After the Prince Group came to power, it maintained a good relationship with Kunlun City. Today, the Prince Group has stabilized its advantages and has become a behemoth that can stand at the same height as the Southeast Group. So? Li Tianlan already had a guess in his heart, but he still couldn't help asking. That's why the next topic is sensitive. Even to you, I can't tell you. Whatever you think is the situation, it's probably the situation. Zhuang Huayang said with a smile. His words were extremely obvious. Unless Li Tianlan was a fool, he would definitely understand what he meant. Li Tianlan didn't say anything. Zhuang Huayang's words were extremely obvious, especially the word puppet, which was an obvious hint. Many years ago, the powerful Southeast Group and the rising Prince Group must have had a lot of conflicts. Especially for the Prince Group, being a puppet was absolutely not something they wanted to see. Under such circumstances, it was completely reasonable for the Prince Group to counterattack in advance in the later period of the Southeast Group's rule. And judging from the result, the Prince Group undoubtedly put the breakthrough point of the counterattack on the original Zhuanyuantai of Kunlun. Everything Zhuang Huayang said was almost equivalent to telling him clearly that his father's treason case was probably the counterattack made by the Prince Group because it was unwilling to be a puppet, and now Kunlun City played the role of an accomplice. Li Tianlan closed his eyes and suddenly felt a little tired. If all this was true, Then if he wanted to investigate the treason case and let the Li family reappear in the power circle of Zhongzhou state, he had to face not only the Wang family of Beihai, but also the Prince Group in Kunlun City. He took a deep breath, as if there were 3 invisible mountains pressing on him, making it difficult for him to breathe. If that's the case, why didn't they investigate it? Li Tianlan was silent for a long time before he asked again. If his father's treason case was framed by the Prince Group in Kunlun City, then they should have been able to find out something when there were still a lot of clues. Until now, he was afraid that many clues had been cut off. Who will investigate it? Zhuang Huayang said meaningfully, Tianlan, don't you know why your grandfather hasn't left the border so far? My old leader has invited your grandfather in person more than once. Li Tianlan immediately thought of Yi Dongxing, who had gone to the border to invite his grandfather back to Yuzhou not long ago. But obviously, Yi Dongxing and Zhuang Huayang were not on the same side, because Li Honghe had made it clear that the reason why Yi Dongxing was willing to reverse the verdict for his son and invite him back to the capital was that Yi Dongxing didn't know he had a grandson. But now, Zhuang Huayang obviously didn't mind his existence. Li Tianlan thought for a while and smiled bitterly again. Why didn't his grandfather leave the border? There was no doubt that if they left, not only Kunlun City and the Prince Group would target them crazily, but even the Wang family of Beihai would never welcome their return. The old leader behind Zhuang Huayang definitely belonged to another group. He might not be so pure when he invited people. Just as Zhuang Huayang couldn't take the initiative to tell him these things when he saw them living a difficult life, he said these things today and invited people with his old leader with the purpose of using the Li family. Such a situation was indeed more dangerous for the Li family than staying at the border. In this situation, the Wang family of Beihai, the Prince Group, and Kunlun City were all standing opposite the Li family. The Li family had declined. None of the 3 forces would be interested in investigating the details of the treason case because they all got what they wanted. Li Tianlan quickly calmed down. He was different from his grandfather. In Huading, he was alone. If he could get what he wanted, he didn't mind being used. In the face of Zhuang Huayang's hint, he narrowed his eyes and said straightforwardly, "What do you need me to do?" "Join us." Zhuang Huayang was straightforward and said with a smile, "I don't even know who you are. How can I join you?" Li Tianlan laughed softly, looking calm and composed. "Let me briefly introduce the current situation of Zhongzhou State to you." Zhuang Huayang stood up and handed Li Tianlan another cigarette. There are 6 groups in Zhongzhou State now, the Southeast Group, the Prince Group, and the Special Warfare Group represented by Kunlun City. In addition, there is the giant group of Zhongzhou State represented by the Dongqing clan, the North Group based in Northern City, and the last one is us. Because many of us have the background of Zhongzhou State College, we are jokingly called the academics and are the current ruling group. The Southeast Group, the Prince Group, the Special Warfare Group, the Giant Group, the North Group, and the academics. Li Tianlan quickly sorted out his thoughts and said calmly, "Why did you choose me?" "Our initial choice was your grandfather." Zhuang Huayang smiled helplessly and said, "Even now, he is our best choice. But obviously, he doesn't have much interest in it. So, we chose you. You have the wind and thunder veins. As long as you don't slack off, you can steadily enter the invincible realm when you grow up. This potential is worth our investment. At present, we have little say in the special warfare system, very little. I'm the only expert in the academics who can control the situation, but my state is also declining, and I can't hold on for long. As for the experts of the younger generation, Qin Ku is okay, but she probably can't enter the invincible realm. So, we chose you in the hope that you can help us get back the say in the special warfare system after entering the invincible realm." Li Tianlan took a big drag on the cigarette. When the cigarette was about to burn out, he looked up at Zhuang Huayang seriously and said, "Is this the idea of the whole academics?" "I talked to the chief on the phone," Zhuang Huayang said in a calm tone. The academics was now the ruling group of Zhongzhou State. It was self-evident who the chief Zhuang Huayang was talking about was. "How much time do I have?" Li Tianlan asked again. This question was very critical for him. 10 years. Zhuang Huayang said in a dignified tone, the chief will probably retire in one term. Within 10 years, the strength of the academics will be at its strongest. After this period, the situation will be a little difficult, which means that our plan will fail. A 10-year plan. Li Tianlan exhaled a mouthful of smoke, got out of bed, and came to the window. In his sight, the endless sea was whistling up and down, and the tide rose and fell, never stopping. Li Tianlan clenched his fist and said without looking back, "Then what can I get?" "Freedom." "Freedom? Freedom." Zhuang Huayang said seriously, "You will not be our vassal. Within 10 years, if you can enter the invincible realm, you will be the most trustworthy ally of the academics. Within 10 years, as long as your performance satisfies us, our help to you will certainly satisfy you. This condition is really unbelievably loose." Li Tianlan looked at the sea and laughed. Zhuang Huayang wanted to say something but stopped on second thought, and finally said, "There are some other reasons, but I can't say it now. You will know sooner or later. It seems that I have no reason to refuse." Li Tianlan turned around and looked at Zhuang Huayang. "If that's the case." Zhuang Huayang smiled and reached out his hand. "Comrade Li Tianlan, we will be on the same side from now on. Comrade, not classmate." Li Tianlan narrowed his eyes slightly, reached out his hand, and held it tightly with Zhuang Huayang. "Tell me about a more coincidental thing." Zhuang Huayang suddenly laughed and said, "In the past 2 decades, every 5 years, there will be a major event in Zhongzhou State. 20 years ago, your father committed treason, and the old patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai died of illness. 15 years ago, the patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai killed Tianling, an invincible realm expert of Tianling, with the murderous weapon human emperor. 10 years ago, Situtsang one of the 4 gods of Zhongzhou State, killed Lu Tianqing, an invincible realm expert of Zhongzhou State. 5 years ago, Gu Qianchuan, the first elder of Kunlun City, successfully entered the invincible realm, and Huading was also snatched from the Wang family of Beihai by the prince group. Now, another 5 years is about to pass. Who knows what will happen? We can forget about these 5 years, but I hope that in the next 10 years, every major event we hear will be related to you." He let go of Li Tianlan's hand, patted him on the shoulder, and went straight to the door. "Have a good rest, I'm leaving." Li Tianlan looked at Zhuang Huayang's back. When Zhuang Huayang was about to go out, he suddenly said, "Who is the patriarch of this generation of the Wang family of Beihai?" Zhuang Huayang's figure paused slightly and said calmly, "It's Wang Yuedong's father, the Lord of Human Emperor, Wang Tianzong." Chapter 32. After Zhuang Huayang left, Li Tianlan faced the sea alone and stood in front of the window for a long time, as if he had become a statue. For the first time since he left the border, he knew his future situation. The southeast group led by the Wang family of Beihai. The Prince group, which had just given up its highest power. In Kunlun City, the power center of the Special Warfare Group. One day in the future, these super forces in the central province that could turn clouds and rain with a flip of their hands would become his enemies. The news couldn't be any worse. But for Li Tianlan, who knew nothing, what Zhuang Huayang said was at least a gain. At least he knew the starting point for investigating his father's treason case when he had the capital one day. The biggest gain was naturally Zhuang Huayang's invitation. In the current situation, he could not refuse the olive branch extended by the academics. Otherwise, Zhuang Huayang didn't need to do anything. He just needed to reveal his identity, and he would die without a burial place. Temporarily joining the academics and becoming their ally in the future was Li Tianlan's only choice at present, and it was also a choice that would help him a lot. However, how long this kind of cooperation could last depended on his own growth and the specific attitude of the academics. Variables could happen at any time. After all, in any case, the academics was now the ruling group of Zhongzhou State, and there were many people who wanted to rely on it. Zhuang Huayang said it was pitiful, but Li Tianlan would not believe that the other party would put all the chips of the 10-year plan on him unless he was a fool. That was to say, before he could surpass other competitors and let the academics put all the chips on him, even if he could get the help of the academics, it would not be too much. After all, Zhuang Huayang just said that the help of the academics would satisfy him. Satisfaction and surprise were two completely different concepts. However, Li Tianlan did not bother to care about this. Compared with the resources that the academics was about to pour into him, Wang Huayang's willingness to temporarily keep the secret about his identity for him was the greatest help to him. Thinking of the Sky Academy, Li Tianlan sobered up in an instant. His statue-like body finally moved, and he breathed a long sigh of relief. Then he laughed at himself. For him, these problems really needed to be considered. If his strength was really at the peak, then the invincibility of the #1 expert in Zhongzhou State, the terror of the human emperor, the insidiousness of the prince group, and the strength of Kunlun City would be very close to him. But now, he was just a freshman of the Sky Academy who had just entered the chi-controlling realm. The most important thing was to take care of what was in front of him. At present, his most important task was to get as many credits as possible from the Sky Academy. In the next 3 years, he must keep his credit advantage and expand it. Then there was the annual maneuver of the 2 academies. The first maneuver of this year would begin in March next year. It was said to be a very cruel scene. In every maneuver, the elites of the 2 academies would bleed on the spot. But because such maneuvers were extremely rich in credits, Li Tianlan had to participate in such maneuvers if he wanted to keep ahead in credits. There was still about a year to go. Li Tianlan thought silently. In a year, under normal circumstances, he could probably recover to the level of the ice-condensing realm and would not be too far from the fire-flaming realm. This progress might not satisfy the academics, but combined with his real combat capability, it should not be difficult to get a good ranking in the maneuver. This was the guarantee for the academics to continue to bet on him. At present, Li Tianlan's goal was very clear. That was to get a good ranking in the maneuver of the 2 academies a year later and then earn as many credits as possible. In the next 3 years, as long as he could restore his peak strength, the academics would have no second choice except for him. Tianlan, what are you thinking about? You didn't even hear me knocking on the door. A voice suddenly sounded from behind Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan turned around abruptly. Li Beidian and Ning Qianqing appeared at the door of the ward together and looked at him at the same time. I'm thinking. Li Tianlan hesitated a little. How can I get a good ranking in the maneuver of the 2 academies next year? It's better to get the first place, or at least the top 3. If he could get the top 3 in the maneuver of the 2 academies, his 2 roommates would definitely be people he could not avoid. The top 10 experts of the younger generation were ranked every year. Although the rankings were exaggerated, as long as they were on the list, no matter how exaggerated they were, it could still show how terrifying their potential was. Li Beidian and Ning Qianqing ranked 4th and 5th respectively. To put it bluntly, they could all be regarded as Li Tianlan's competitors. However, there were many ways to compete. Some were benign, while others were irreconcilable. Li Tianlan admired these 2 roommates from the bottom of his heart and did not want to have a bad relationship with them. Ning Qianqing and Li Beidian were stunned at the same time. What's there to think about? Improving my strength is the most important thing. Tianlan, when the time comes, as long as you have the strength, just close your eyes and rush forward. I'll do my best to clear the obstacles for you. If we meet, I'll go easy on you. Li Beidian said with a smile. Me too. I'm not strong enough to fight for the top 5. Tianlan, if you have the strength, I won't stand in your way. Ning Qianqing's attitude was equally clear. As for whether he really thought so, no one knew. You? Li Tianlan narrowed his eyes and looked at the 2 suspiciously. He was not stupid. If he was a little confused when the 3 of them met for the first time, then he had to be suspicious of some clues in the maneuver. The kindness of these 2 people towards him seemed to be a little too much. What? I don't want to make it too clear. Damn it, you have to force me. Li Badian rolled his eyes and said grumpily, I mean the same thing as Qiancheng. I have no confidence in making it to the top 3. We are brothers in the same dormitory. If you have enough strength, who would want to stand in your way? The Great Void Sword of Mount Shu is indeed strong, but in terms of martial arts, it is a real unique skill in the late stage. At least before the thunder-shocking realm, I'm definitely no match for Dongqing Rushi, the genius disciple of Jade Pool. As for Jiang Shangyu, who is ranked higher than Dongqing Rushi, I'm even weaker. But if I enter the thunder-shocking realm, then it'll be different. Li Tianlan was no longer a noob who knew nothing when he first entered the world. At least he had some understanding of the top 10 young experts. Yu Qinyan once said that Dongqing Rushi was a genius who ranked ahead of Li Badian among the top 10 young experts. She ranked 3rd. At the age of 19, she was already an expert of the fire-flaming realm. Jiang Shangyu ranked 2nd. It was said that both of them were geniuses with exquisite bones and their learning abilities were unparalleled in the world. But Li Tianlan didn't take it to heart. Wind and thunder veins, heavenly king heart, and exquisite bones were definitely the best congenital conditions for people who practiced martial arts. But congenital conditions were not omnipotent. At least Li Tianlan knew that the number 1 expert in Heng State many years ago was a peerless genius who possessed both the heavenly king heart and the exquisite bone. But after he successfully stepped into the invincible realm, he was also killed by his grandfather. The red sandalwood plaque with the words, Li family, on it in the border camp was his grandfather's trophy after that fierce battle. And his grandfather, Li Honghe, was just an ordinary person in terms of physique. But Li Badian had such a high opinion of these two people, so Li Tianlan had to pay attention to them. In the maze, Li Baitian's unification of thousands of swords against Lu Dongyu had majestic sword intent, but the sword energy was illusory. Its power had already surpassed the ice-condensing realm. Li Badian believed that in his current state, if he took that sword head-on, even if he was lucky, he would at least be seriously injured. Such combat strength was absolutely rare in the younger generation, but he admitted that he was no match for Dongqing Rushi and Jiang Shangyu. No matter how arrogant Li Tianlan was, he wouldn't ignore this fact. But he still had some doubts and asked subconsciously, is what you said true? Damn you, is it a glorious thing to admit that you can't beat others? Li Badian said angrily. This was indeed a reason. Li Tianlan laughed and didn't take it seriously. He asked casually, who has a cigarette? Ning Qianqing fumbled in his pocket, took out half a pack of Chunghua cigarettes and threw them to Li Tianlan. He said regretfully, I'm almost out of stock. If I want to smoke again in the future, I have to exchange credits. Save some for me. Li Tianlan smiled, took out a cigarette, lit it, and threw it back. Each of the 3 of them smoked. Li Badian had just woken up from a coma, and he had internal injuries. He coughed violently after a few puffs. He put out the cigarette helplessly and sighed. This maneuver is a failure for me. The ranking is okay, but I didn't do anything in the end. Is this a victory without doing anything? Tianlan's performance was brilliant. F***ck, you killed Lu Xiuwei, the old bastard. By the way, Tianlan, how did you kill Lu Xiuwei? What's the matter with your realm? Li Badian had wanted to ask this question several times during the maneuver. Now that he finally found the opportunity, he was completely unyielding. It was really a fluke. Li Tianlan thought for a moment and said seriously, my weapon was probably a little beyond his expectation. In addition, in a place where no one can see, my movement technique is much more agile than his. If we were to fight head-on, the result would be hard to say. However, that old fellow wanted to trick me, and in the end, I tricked him. He deserves to die. Facing Li Badian and Ning Qianqing, Li Tianlan was completely telling the truth. The complexity of the human emperor was definitely beyond Lu Xiuwei's imagination. In addition, his body movement greatly restrained the martial arts of the Lu family, so the more Lu Xiuwei fought, the more impatient he became. Moreover, he thought himself clever. If he hadn't wanted to use the 2 trees to block the attack route of the human emperor, Li Tianlan wouldn't have beaten him at his own game. The human emperor instantly turned into two swords and directly cut off one of Lu Xiue's arms. From that moment on, Lu Xiue's fate was sealed. The martial arts of the Lu family is indeed not flexible enough. This is a well-known fact. Ning Qianqing nodded. The defeat of Lu Tianqing 10 years ago directly exposed the shortcomings of the martial arts of the Lu family. This was also something that many people found strange. After all, Lu Tianqing was an expert of the invincible realm. It shouldn't be difficult for him to create a set of body movement. Even if the body movement was ordinary, it could slightly make up for the shortcomings of the unique skills of the Lu family. But the problem was that he didn't have any unique skills of body movement worth mentioning until his death. No. Li Beidian suddenly said, it's true that the unique skills of the Lu family are flawed, but not all body movements can restrain them. Moreover, the gap between you and Lu Xiue is too big. So, to restrain them, only the top body movement in the dark world can do it. Tianlan, what body movement did you use? I call it Qingfeng. Li Tianlan said calmly, as for the top you mentioned, it shouldn't be counted, right? Qingfeng? It was indeed a name that no one had heard of. Li Beidian and Ning Qianqing looked at each other. After a moment of silence, Li Beidian said, Tianlan, do you mind if I try this set of body movement with you? Li Tianlan was stunned and wanted to say that it was not necessary. But seeing Li Beidian's serious expression, he swallowed the words that were on the tip of his tongue. Sure. Ning Qianqing didn't say anything but stood up and moved aside. He had heard rumors about the Great Void Sword of Mount Shu. The unique skills of the Great Void Sword had a total of 3 moves, but the third move was the perfect combination of sword and body movement. Its power could be said to be endless. Li Beidian certainly couldn't grasp the essence of the third move, but it shouldn't be a problem for him to know a little about it. Then I'm coming. Li Beidian stood up and said with a smile. His eyes were excited and he was eager to try. Come on. Li Tianlan nodded casually. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Beidian had already taken a step forward. In an instant, the sword intent in the ward surged. The whole ward seemed to disappear in an instant. Li Tianlan seemed to be in the void. His whole body was surrounded by sword energy, but at the same time, it was as if nothing existed. Only an endless breath of danger was erupting. The moment his mind was attracted by the endless sword intent, Li Beidian directly rushed forward and leaped over the distance of 7 or 8 meters. He punched directly at Li Tianlan's chest with his bare hands. There was a slight flash of lightning at the door of the ward. Qin Ku, who happened to be in the hospital and was alarmed by the Great Void Sword intent, appeared directly at the door. At the same time, almost out of instinct, Li Tianlan moved slightly to the left and retreated at the same time. His body seemed to be weightless. Rather than saying he was moving, it would be better to say that he was floating. In a very small area, countless Li Tianlans appeared in an instant. Ning Qianqing, who was watching from the side, suddenly felt dizzy, but he didn't dare to relax his eyes at all. But in the next second, his pupils suddenly contracted to the extreme. In Li Tianlan's sight, all the afterimages were disappearing. Somehow, Li Tianlan's retreating body appeared behind Li Beidian and grabbed him by the neck. Such a body movement completely deceived everyone's eyes in an instant. The whole ward suddenly fell into a deathly silence. Li Beidian, who was already injured, bled again from the corner of his mouth. But he didn't notice it at all. He just exclaimed in disbelief, "How is this possible?" Ning Qianqing's shock was no less than Li Beidian's. He opened his mouth and was about to speak when Qin Ku, who was at the door, directly spoke. Chapter 33. Li Tianlan's heart suddenly sank. Situ Zhangyue, the hidden god of Zhongzhou State. This was the second time he had heard the name today. The first time was from Zhuang Huayang's mouth. Not long ago, he told Li Tianlan that 10 years ago, Situ Zhangyue, the hidden god of Zhongzhou State, killed Lu Tianqing, an expert of the invincible realm. It could be seen that Situ Tsanyue was definitely one of the 4 experts of the invincible realm in Zhongzhou State, and she was an extraordinary one. But Li Tianlan really had nothing to do with him, even this name. Even this name, he had never heard of it before today. The body movement he used was given to him by his grandfather. After he slightly modified it, it became what it was now. It was called Qingfeng. But now, Qin Ke suddenly appeared here and told him that this body movement was called Desperate Chase. What the hell was going on? In the twinkling of an eye, countless thoughts turned in Li Tianlan's mind. Could it be that this movement technique had really spread to the outside world and become the so-called Desperate Chase? Or were they actually 2 sets of body movement, but in fact, they were somewhat similar? If this kind of unique skill was really similar, it was actually very troublesome, and it might even arouse the hostility of Situ Tsanyue, an expert of the invincible realm. But if the 2 sets of body movement were really homologous, then what was Situ Tsanyue's current position? Li Tianlan was a little confused, but he knew that he could not lose his composure now. He let go of Li Beidian, nodded to Qin Ku, and did not answer her question. He just whispered, "Hello, Miss Qin." "Hello." Qin Ku's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly. In Li Tianlan's impression, Qin Ku seemed to be cold and inhuman all the time. It could be said that she was an iceberg beauty. But at this moment, Qin Ku almost subverted Li Tianlan's impression. Her expression was still cold, but there was a kind of curious and extremely fiery light in her eyes. "Tianlan, how is Governor?" Qin Ku suddenly asked. "Governor? What governor?" Li Tianlan had a headache and made up his mind to catch up on relevant information. At the very least, he had to figure out the basic pattern of the special warfare system of Zhongzhou State. The so-called city lord was most likely related to Situ Tsanyue. At this point, he didn't know whether to deny it or to admit it. He just felt that something was wrong no matter what he said. At the moment, he could only bite the bullet and vaguely say, "The city lord has always been in good health." "That's good." Qin Ku smiled, which was very rare. The worship in her eyes flashed and then disappeared. Then, it became a little regretful. "I could have visited the city governor in person a few days ago. What a pity." Seeing that the cold beauty in front of him was most likely a fan of the governor, Li Tianlan dared not say more. He felt like an idiot. Now he was not even sure whether the governor was Situ Tsanyue or not. If Qin Ku wanted to gossip, he might make a fool of himself. So he glanced at Qin Ku and asked directly, "Teacher Qin, do you have anything else to say?" "Nothing." Qin Ku, who was in a trance, suddenly realized that she had lost her composure. She took a deep look at Li Tianlan and said softly, "It turns out that you are the disciple of Governor Situ." "No wonder, no wonder." She said, "No wonder," twice and continued, "If you have a chance, say hello to the city lord for me. If you have anything in the future, you can also come to the teaching office to find me." There was no doubt that Li Tianlan's identity as the disciple of the city lord worked. Li Tianlan nodded subconsciously. Looking at her back as she left, he made up his mind to stay as far away from this woman as possible in the future. When Qin Ku was far away, Li Beidian directly rushed over without wiping the blood on the corner of his mouth. He said with his eyes shining, "Well done, Tianlan. It turns out that you are the most mysterious one. Tut tut, I have never heard that Governor Situ has accepted a disciple, and he is a man. Your status is not low." "A man?" Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows slightly. "So, Situ Tsanyue is the city lord? A woman?" The sharpness of this sentence was no less than a sharp sword. In an instant, Li Beidian was stunned. "What do you mean?" He was stunned for 2 seconds before he spoke subconsciously. Ning Qianxing was not surprised. A person who did not know the origin of the Wang family of Beihai and seemed to be unfamiliar with the special warfare system was too unlikely to be Situ Tsanyue's disciple. But the body movement that Li Tianlan had just used was indeed Situ Tsanyue's famous unique skill. In recent years, it even had the reputation of being the first body movement in the dark world. It was impeccable and unpredictable when it moved in a small range and chased in a large range. Once he mastered such a body movement, he would almost be invincible in the face of any opponent in the same realm. It was Situ Tsang-yue's secret. How did Li Tianlan learn it? I don't know Situ Tsang-yue. Li Tianlan said calmly. Li Beidian, who was stunned, finally came to his senses. The muscles on his face suddenly twitched. You mean, you have nothing to do with the hidden god at all? Then how did you learn this body movement? This is her unique skill. She won't teach it to anyone except her last disciple. Li Tianlan felt a little helpless. It was really hard for him to answer this question because it involved his identity. He was willing to trust Ning Qianqing and Li Beidian, but the identity he was hiding now was too sensitive. It would not do either side any good if he told them. So he shook his head and said, "It's a long story. Let's talk about the hidden god of Zhongzhou State first." The hidden god of Zhongzhou State, Situ Tsang-yue. What's there to say? Li Beidian was shocked and flustered. Ning Qianqing sneered and shook his head. The hidden god, Situ Tsang-yue, is one of the 4 gods of Zhongzhou State. Among the 4 invincible realm experts of Zhongzhou State, she is the only woman. But she is strong and even a little crazy. This person doesn't follow the rules. Very few people dare to provoke her. 4 gods of Zhongzhou State. Are they the 4 invincible realm experts? Li Tianlan asked curiously. This was something that everyone in the special warfare system should know, but he didn't. He could only ask whatever he wanted in front of Ning Qianqing and Li Beidian. If it was on other occasions, given his cautious character, he wouldn't ask directly even if he didn't know. No. Ning Qianqing shook his head. Among the 4 gods, the first is the god of war of Zhongzhou State, governor of Kunlun City, Gu Xingyun. The second is the hidden god of Zhongzhou State, governor of Sai City, Situ Tsang-yue. The third is the commander of our border Praetorian Corps, Dongqing Wudi, the god of massacre of Zhongzhou State. The last is the deputy minister of the army headquarters of Zhongzhou State, god of war Yi Dongsheng. God of war Yi Dongsheng. The corner of Li Tianlan's mouth moved. He took a deep breath and suppressed all his emotions. Among the 4 gods of Zhongzhou State, 3 of them have public offices. Only Situ Tsang-yue and her Sai City are different. They belong to a semi-official organization, the so-called Special Warfare Giants, or Dark Giants. It is said that Situ Tsang-yue also graduated from the Sky Academy many years ago and was one of the first few students. Sai City is the organization she founded after graduation. Nowadays, the strongest killers and assassins in Zhongzhou State are almost all gathered in Sai City. In addition, Situ Tsang-yue holds the setting sun, one of the 12 murderous weapons of Zhongzhou State. Even in the whole dark world, they are also a pivotal force. Among the graduates of the Sky Academy and the Deep Sea Academy, Situ Tsang-yue can be said to be the most accomplished dark giant. Li Tianlan rubbed his cheek hard, took a deep breath, and suddenly said, "What about Wang Tianzong, the top expert of Zhongzhou State? Why isn't he on the list of the 4 gods?" Ning Qianqing was obviously stunned, and then he said with a wry smile, "How do I know? People like him probably disdained this kind of ranking a long time ago, right?" Li Tianlan sat on the bed again and was in a daze. Qingfeng, desperate chase. Were these 2 kinds of movement techniques from the same source? If they were, what was the relationship between the current Sai City and Zhuanyuantai of Kunlun? What was Situ Tsang-yue's attitude toward the Li family now? For Li Tianlan, behind this question was likely to be a tiger skin that could give him great protection, but it could also be a talisman that hastened his death. Before figuring this out, this set of body techniques could not be shown to others. With the agreement between him and Zhuang Huayang, he did not have to worry that Qin Ku would leak anything. Ning Qianqing and Li Beidian were also trustworthy. But at present, the feeling that he could only go with the flow in the general trend and be powerless to do anything made him extremely uncomfortable and unwilling. The turbulent situation between the 6 groups of Zhongzhou State and the maneuvering of the invincible realm experts seemed to be something he could only watch. The only thing he could do now was to restore his strength and earn points in the Sky Academy. Li Tianlan suddenly smiled. His smile was bitter, but it contained a kind of forbearance to the bones. No matter how unwilling I am, what can I do? He suddenly said in a low voice. His light tone seemed to be filled with endless distance. What? Ning Qiansheng and Li Beidian looked at each other. Nothing, I'm a little tired. Li Tianlan shook his head and forcibly suppressed all the thoughts in his mind. Then you rest first. I'll eat something with Qiansheng. What do you want to eat? I'll bring you a portion. Li Beidian asked. Whatever. Anything is fine. Li Tianlan lay casually on the bed and said calmly. Li Beidian nodded and said no more. He walked directly out of the ward with Ning Qiansheng. The ward became quiet again. The light of the setting sun faded, and darkness enveloped the earth. Only the sound of waves beating on the shore continued to echo and enter the ears. Li Tianlan lay motionless on the bed, thinking about the camp at the border, the desert in Beijiang, and the current Sky Academy. He felt that his thoughts had never been clearer, but also never been more messy. It was the expectation and confusion for the future. The former Zhuanyuantai of Kunlun, the former god of war family. What was his fate? What was his own fate? His phone vibrated. Li Tianlan picked up the phone and glanced at it. His steady heartbeat suddenly began to speed up uncontrollably. It was not a phone call on the screen, but a video call from Qin Weibai from thousands of miles away. This was the first time Qin Weibai had sent him a video call since she went to Billy State. Li Tianlan turned over on the bed and lay on his stomach. His fingers that connected the video call were trembling slightly. The video call was connected. After a short delay, Qin Weibai's delicate and sharp, flawless beautiful face appeared directly on the screen. The kind of yearning with a little warmth and a little uneasiness seemed to flow through Li Tianlan's body. He stared at the screen in front of him and didn't know what to say for a moment. Qin Weibai took the initiative to break the silence. She smiled softly and said, "It's so dark over there. I can't see you clearly." "No, I forgot to turn on the light." Li Tianlan said a little awkwardly, but he didn't move. He felt as if his face was on fire. There was embarrassment, and nervousness. Fortunately, there was darkness to cover up such a state, so he didn't look so unnatural. "What are you doing?" Qin Weibai asked softly. Because of the time difference, it was late at night in Billy State, but she was still dressed neatly. She seemed to be in a study. Behind her was a huge bookshelf and a crystal chandelier that looked extremely complicated and gorgeous. The chandelier flowed with a dreamy luster. Under the light, Qin Weibai had a kind of soul-stirring beauty. "I'm in a daze." "What about you?" Li Tianlan gave a simple response. "I was thinking about you, so I opened a video call for you." Qin Weibai held her cheek with one hand and held the phone with the other. She smiled and squinted her eyes. Her whole body was rippling with an indescribable tenderness. Li Tianlan opened his mouth and didn't know what to say. His heartbeat was getting faster and faster, making his mouth a little dry. "Have you eaten?" Seeing that Li Tianlan didn't say anything, Qin Weibai pursed her lips and continued to ask. "Not yet. I don't have an appetite." Li Tianlan shook his head and looked at Qin Weibai's face seriously, not willing to miss any detail. "What? Are you unhappy?" Qin Weibai was also looking at Li Tianlan seriously. The look in their eyes was almost the same, but they didn't realize it. "I'm okay. I'm just a little tired." Li Tianlan scratched his head and suddenly wanted to smoke again. "You still need to eat something and go to bed early after eating. You should have a holiday after the entrance maneuver. Have you thought about going out for a walk?" Qin Weibai said softly. "Well, I'm going home. You said you left me some information. I want to have a look." Li Tianlan's tone was a little fast. He didn't know how nervous he was when he said he was going home. "Well, Qin Weibai's voice suddenly became soft. The softness of a little woman, which no one had ever seen before, overflowed unconsciously. She was charming and charming. She suddenly asked, "Did you miss me after I came to Billy State?" Li Tianlan was stunned and nodded subconsciously. Yes. He hesitated, then gritted his teeth and said, "I missed you very much." At this moment, all the pressure and annoyance in his heart disappeared, and his eyes were unprecedentedly bright. Qin Weibai smiled softly, but she laughed out loud. "I missed you very much, too." Her voice was low and soft, like a warm current, flowing directly into Li Tianlan's heart. Li Tianlan scratched his head and giggled. On the other side of the screen, Qin Weibai looked at him quietly for a while and said, "I'm hanging up. There are still some things to deal with. If you miss me, you can turn on the video call me at any time. My phone is always with me." "Okay." Li Tianlan responded. Watching Qin Weibai's face disappear in front of his eyes, his heart became a little sad. At the same time, thousands of miles away, in the Aurora Hotel in Bruxelles. In the luxury suite, Qin Weibai looked at the dim screen of her phone, and her eyes were also a little sad. There were a lot of documents piled up in front of her. The ones on the left had been dealt with, and the ones on the right had not been read. But at this moment, holding the phone, she suddenly lost interest in everything in front of her. There was a slight knock on the door. Before Qin Weibai could answer, Flaming Fire had pushed the door open and walked in. She said respectfully, "Boss, General Bashir is still waiting." General Bashir. In Billy State, this was definitely a resounding name. He was the real power in the military of Billy State, and he had a real high position and power. But at this time, such a powerful general had been waiting in a carefully prepared negotiation room in the hotel for nearly 6 hours. "I won't see him." Qin Weibai shook her head and said lightly. "Okay." Flaming Fire nodded expressionlessly and turned to go out. "Flaming Fire!" Qin Weibai suddenly shouted. Flaming Fire's figure, which was about to go out, paused slightly and stopped at the door. "Get ready." Qin Weibai's eyes were deep and gentle. She looked at the phone in her tender white palm. "Let's go back to Zhongzhou State. Now." "Now." Flaming Fire's expression changed, and she hesitated. "But tomorrow, let's go back to Zhongzhou State, now." With her back to Flaming Fire, she quietly turned on her mobile phone and looked at Li Tianlan, who was in a daze on the screen. She murmured softly, "I miss him. I miss him so much." Flaming Fire took a deep breath, answered, and turned to leave directly. Qin Weibai was still sitting in the same position, quietly looking at Li Tianlan on the phone, her eyes hazy. In a trance, she seemed to think of that dream again. She thought of that man, the heavy snow many years ago, and the end of his destiny, which was full of thunder and snowflakes. Qin Weibai's eyes became more and more hazy and blurred. Tears quietly slid down her cheeks. She came to her senses and wiped her eyes. On the screen of the phone, the dull Li Tianlan became clear again. She tightly pursed her rosy lips and looked calm, but her eyes, which were as bright as the galaxy, were burning with endless madness. Chapter 34. Even as the little princess of the Wang family of Beihai, Wang Yuetong was in some ways just like ordinary people. She was very interested in going out to play, especially when she thought that she would be locked up on this island for an unknown period of time. She seemed to be even more impatient. At dawn, Wang Yuetong had already arrived at Li Tianlan's ward. She seemed to know that it was a little early, so her voice was a little low and she seemed a little guilty. "Senior brother Tianlan, are you up?" "Yes." Li Tianlan answered. He was in a deep sleep, but he was extremely vigilant. The instinctive attitude of guarding against everything around him had long been engraved in his blood and bones. Not to mention when he was asleep, even when he was in a deep coma, once someone who could threaten his safety appeared, he could also rely on instinct to make unconscious counterattacks. Before Wang Yuetong approached the door, he had already opened his eyes. She hesitated at the door again. When she opened her mouth, Li Tianlan had basically put on his clothes. He stood up from the bed, stretched his body, and said casually, "Come in, the door is not locked." The door was gently pushed open, and Wang Yuetong walked into the ward with a smile on her face. She looked at Li Tianlan with a sweet smile. Even Li Tianlan, who had been occupied by Qin Weibai and could hardly contain any color, at the sight of Wang Yuetong at this moment, his eyes also lit up. The camouflage uniforms of the Sky Academy were only for convenience in combat, and they were not particular about style at all. They were even a little loose. Wang Yuetong's appearance in camouflage uniforms was already extremely stunning, but after she changed into casual clothes, her charm increased a lot. Now the little princess of the Wang family, the little demon girl, seemed to be shining from head to toe. Wherever she went, she was the focus of people's attention. She was wearing a pair of white skin-tight jeans, which completely outlined the lines of her slender legs. It could be said that her legs were one of the most beautiful legs Li Tianlan had ever seen. They were long, slender, and straight, almost comparable to Qin Weibai's. After taking off her military boots, Wang Yuetong put on a pair of black but playful stiletto heels, which almost held up all her aura. She was wearing a white long-sleeved sweater, which was also a slim style, which fully displayed her charming figure. Her long hair casually fell over her shoulders. She smiled softly, like an elf or an angel who had been left in the world. At this moment, Wang Yuetong seemed to have changed into another person. The charming and flamboyant coquettish aura had all disappeared. Instead, she was a very quiet, lively, and somewhat elegant beautiful girl. "You are very beautiful today, even more beautiful than yesterday." After a few seconds of silence, Li Tianlan took the initiative to open his mouth and praised sincerely. "Is that so? Senior brother Tianlan, do you like this type?" Wang Yuetong's smile became sweeter and sweeter. She took the initiative to turn in a circle in front of Li Tianlan. The sound of her high-heeled shoes hitting the ground was crisp and sweet. In a trance, the moment Wang Yuetong turned around, Li Tianlan's eyes were completely attracted by her extremely perky buttocks wrapped under the skin-tight jeans. What a beautiful scenery! Li Tianlan suppressed his wild imagination and said directly, "Why don't I see Qin Yan?" Yu Qin Yan and Wang Yuetong were now in the same dormitory, and there were only the two of them in the dormitory for the time being. Now that it was the holiday, Yu Qin Yan had no reason to stay at school instead of accompanying Yu Donglai if Wang Yuetong wanted to go out. Li Tianlan also happened to be going to Yu Donglai's place to get the key. He had thought that they could go together, but he did not expect that Wang Yuetong would come alone. Before Wang Yuetong could answer, footsteps sounded at the door. Li Beidian and Ning Qianqing walked in one after another. Wang Yuetong's bright eyes turned, and she seemed to be unaware of everything behind her. She chuckled and said, "Qin Yan is a sensible girl. She said that she would not disturb me and her brother Li, so she went home first." Li Beidian and Ning Qianqing, who had just entered the door, suddenly froze. Wang Yuetong said this with her back to them, leaving them some leeway. But the meaning of her words could not be more obvious. Yu Qin Yan was so sensible, if they went out with Li Beidian, wouldn't it be insensible? The little princess of the Wang family of Beihai had made it so clear that she wanted to spend time with Li Tianlan alone. If they were still so insensible, they would offend her. Li Beidian coughed softly. Wang Yuetong seemed to have just noticed their arrival. She turned her head and said with some surprise, "Why are you so early?" "We're here to say hello to Tianlan," Li Beidian said with a straight face. Wang Yuetong's eyes were full of smiles, but Li Tianlan was puzzled. "Say hello to what?" Well, Qiansheng and I suddenly have something to deal with, so we have to stay in the academy for some time. Tianlan, you go out with Yuetong first. We'll go to you after we deal with things, and then we'll contact you by phone," Li Beidian said casually. But looking at his twinkling eyes, Li Tianlan was not stupid. How could he not know that they were making way for Wang Yuetong? This gave Li Tianlan a headache. Before he grew up completely, or before he was completely against the Wang family of Beihai, he and Wang Yuetong could probably maintain the relationship of good friends or even confidants. But all this was an illusion after all. When the Li family appeared in Zhongzhou state again and faced the Wang family of Beihai, it would be a matter of the overall situation. In the overall situation, the friendship between him and Wang Yuetong could only become the entanglement and helplessness of both sides. From this point of view, Li Tianlan did not intend to be too close to Wang Yuetong. That night, he had stabilized the healing of his injury and his longevity, and he had regarded it as a favor that he had to return. In other words, Li Tianlan had clearly drawn a line between him and Wang Yuetong. Now he really did not want to be alone with her. Although her charm was not enough to change Li Tianlan's standpoint, he still felt uncomfortable at the thought that one day they would part ways or even oppose each other. My aunt is now in Huading. We haven't seen each other for more than a year. After Beidian and I finish our business, I'll go to visit my aunt. How about tonight? Let's get together at night, okay? Ning Qianqing glanced at Wang Yuetong's face and simply gave her a clear time. It was only early in the morning. From morning to night, it would be more than 10 hours, which was not a short time at all. He believed that the time was enough to satisfy Wang Yuetong. After all, it was impossible for the two to spend the night outside alone. Not to mention that Wang Yuetong would not do that, even if she really took the wrong medicine and wanted to do so. The experts of the Wang family of Beihai who secretly protected Wang Yuetong would not agree. Senior brother Tianlan? Wang Yuetong got the answer she was satisfied with and turned to look at Li Tianlan. Her eyes were still soft and even a little sweet, but there was a trace of toughness and persistence in them that would not make people feel disgusted. I don't care. Li Tianlan said flatly. Then it's decided. Let's go. Wang Yuetong giggled and ran over to pull Li Tianlan's arm. Yuetong, where are you taking Tianlan? Ning Qianqing suddenly asked without batting an eyelid. Wang Yuetong did not think too much about it. With her identity, she could be completely unscrupulous among the younger generation and say whatever she wanted. Second uncle has just returned to Huading recently. I'm taking him to meet him. Was he going to meet his parents? Second uncle? Li Beidian was fine. He had been in Mount Shu for a long time. Although he was not ignorant of the outside world, he would not pay too much attention to it. However, Ning Qianqing's face suddenly changed. But it was not convenient for him to say anything in front of Wang Yuetong, so he just gave Li Tianlan a wink. Wang Yuetong's second uncle was the younger brother of Wang Tianzong, the patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai. He was an extremely famous figure in Huading and even the entire Zhongzhou state. He could even be said to be one of the most famous playboys. Not only was he popular in the playboy circle, but he also had great power in the political and business circles of Zhongzhou state. Ning Qianqing had never met Wang Yuetong's second uncle, but it was said that he was less than 30 years old and had entered the thunder-shocking realm for nearly 3 years. He even had the hope of breaking through to the invincible realm in the future. The Wang family of Beihai had been established in Zhongzhou state for hundreds of years. There were countless versions of rumors about them, even specific to a certain core member. The most widely circulated version today was that after the Prince Group took over Huading from the Southeast Group 5 years ago, the Wang family of Beihai was not reconciled to it and directly sent Wang Yuetong's second uncle over, intending to secretly fight for the dominance of Huading. Now, the internal power hierarchy of Huading was very chaotic. Even if the Prince Group took over Huading, it would only take the first opportunity. It was still far from the situation of being a sole power. The Wang family of Beihai directly sent this heavyweight to Huading. It seemed that they really intended to fight for the dominance of Huading. Ning Qianqing was not very clear about the second uncle's ability. But he was well aware of his domineering and ferocious nature. It was said that a few months ago, Wang Yuetong's second uncle beat Huading's young master Zhong Yuwei into a vegetative state in Huading for a mysterious woman with the surname Qin. The incident caused quite a stir. After that, the super playboy of the Wang family of Beihai swaggered back to Beihai province. After keeping a low profile for a few months, he came back again. It seemed that Zhong Yue's matter had been left unsettled. Zhong Yue himself was not a big deal, but his uncle could be regarded as a real top bigwig in the entire Zhongzhou state. Zhong Yongming. He was one of the leaders of the Prince Group, a member of the Zhongzhou Decision-Making Committee, and the top leader of Huading. Zhong Yue, such a backer, was directly abolished. It seemed that he was lying in the hospital in a coma until now. But a few months had passed, and the Zhong family had never taken any action. The strength of the Wang family of Beihai and the ferociousness and arrogance of this second uncle were all evident. Watching Li Tianlan and Wang Yuetong walk out of the ward, Ning Qianqing frowned and took out his mobile phone. He tried to shorten the words he wanted to say and typed quickly. Li Beidian also took out his mobile phone with a smile and sent a message to Li Tianlan. "What the hell did you send? Why are you smiling so wretchedly?" Ning Qianqing asked with a frown. "I told Tianlan that it's treacherous to refuse her. The little princess of the Wang family of Beihai. TSK. I hope he can understand what I mean." Li Beidian said with a smile. "Bullshit. Do you know who Wang Yuetong is taking Tianlan to see?" Ning Qianqing said coldly. "Who?" Li Beidian was slightly stunned. "Isn't she an elder?" Ning Qianqing was so angry that he had a headache. He rubbed his temples hard and continued to type without looking up. "Yes, she is an elder, but she is also the playboy who seems to be the most idle and reckless in the entire Wang family of Beihai. Wang Xiaoyao. King Xiaoyao of the Wang family of Beihai. Do you really think this meeting is a good thing?" When they walked out of the hospital gate, the sky was already bright. The air was slightly cold. Li Tianlan walked in front in silence, thinking about who Wang Yuedong's second uncle was and what was the point of Wang Yuetong taking him there. Suddenly, a light and charming voice sounded behind him. "Senior brother Tianlan, are you nervous?" Li Tianlan was about to answer when the phone in his pocket suddenly vibrated. He took out the phone and looked at the message from Li Beidian. After a while, he replied, "Damn you." As soon as he finished typing, the phone vibrated again. This time, it was a message from Ning Qianqing. Li Tianlan opened it and scanned it quickly. Suddenly, he smiled and put the phone back into his pocket calmly. He said, "The Wang family of Beihai occupies Zhongzhou state and is a real behemoth. It's understandable that I'm a little nervous, isn't it? Don't worry. Second uncle won't eat people." Wang Yuetong giggled and approached Li Tianlan. The fresh and fragrant scent of a young girl blew over, intoxicating him. But Li Tianlan secretly smiled bitterly. Won't eat people? In the message sent by Ning Qianqing, it was clear that Wang Yuedong's second uncle, Wang Xiaoyao, would eat people without spitting out the bones. Furthermore, I'm not taking you out this time to see second uncle. Then who? Li Tianlan asked in confusion. A Taoist priest named Xian Xuanzi. Wang Yuetong said softly with awe in her eyes. She suddenly asked, "Senior brother Tianlan, do you believe in fate?" Fate? Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows. After a long silence, he said calmly, "Whether I believe it or not, my grandfather once told me that I cannot believe in fate, but I cannot be disrespectful and fearless." You will believe it. Wang Yuetong walked beside Li Tianlan and looked at him quietly. Her eyes were even brighter than the rising sun. "Senior brother Tianlan, today, in front of Xian Xuanzi, you will see your own fate. The real fate." You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.